welcome back. And if this is your first time here, you're in the right place. Tonight's video features long, scary stories from abandoned places and lost locations, perfect for relaxing and drifting into sleep. If you enjoy the stories, please like the video, subscribe, and comment where you're listening from. Get comfortable and let the night take over. Story 1. The motel was a fossil, a perfectly preserved specimen from an era of chrome, linoleum, and a kind of desperate roadside optimism that no longer exists. It was called the Starlight Vista, a grand, ludicrous name for a low-slung, L-shaped building of peeling paint and buzzing neon that offered a stunning vista of a gas station and a 24-hour diner. I was the night clerk, a post I had occupied for the past 6 years. My name is Arthur, and my life had become a long, quiet, and deeply repetitive night, punctuated only by the arrival of the occasional weary traveler or the distant melancholy wail of a train passing through the dark. The Starlight Vista was a place of ghosts, but not the spooky kind. It was haunted by the ghosts of salesmen with worn-out briefcases, of families on cross-country trips in wood-paneled station wagons, of lovers meeting for clandestine, lukewarm affairs. Every scuff on the floor, every cigarette burn on the Formica countertops was a small, silent testament to a life that had passed through and moved on. I was the curator of this museum of transient lives. My nightly ritual was as fixed and unchanging as the constellations. I'd make a pot of coffee that was strong enough to dissolve a spoon. I'd read the local paper with a kind of detached anthropological interest, and I'd check the reservation ledger. The ledger was the one anomaly in my otherwise predictable world. It was a thick, leather-bound book, its pages yellowed and soft with age, a holdover from the pre-digital era that the motel's owner, a flinty, unsentimental old man named Mr. Gable, refused to replace. And in that ledger there was the mystery of Room 9. Every single night, for as long as I had worked there, the entry for Room 9 was the same. A single, neat, and unchanging line, written in a precise, slightly old-fashioned cursive, J. Corbin. No first name, no payment information, no check-in time. Just the name. The reservation was a permanent, unmovable fixture in the book. The first time I asked Mr. Gable about it, he had given me a look that was as cold and sharp as a shard of broken glass. "Room 9 is not your concern, Arthur," he'd said, his voice a low, gravelly rumble. "It's occupied, permanently. You do not knock on the door. You do not slide a bill under it. You simply leave it be. Is that understood?" It was not an invitation for a conversation. It was an order, and for 6 years I had obeyed it. I had treated Room 9 as if it did not exist. It was a blank spot on the map of my small nocturnal kingdom, but my curiosity, a slow, patient, and persistent creature, had been gnawing at the edges of my obedience for years. I had done the math. I had gone back, page by yellowed page, through the old ledgers that were stored in the back office. The reservation for J. Corbin had started on a Tuesday, October 14th, 1986, and it had never stopped. 39 years, 14,235 nights, a single, unbroken reservation. Who was J. Corbin? Was he a recluse, a modern-day Howard Hughes, living out his days in a cheap roadside motel? But I had never seen anyone go in or out of that room. The housekeeping staff, 2 quiet middle-aged sisters named Maria and Sophia, never cleaned it. When I had asked them, They had just crossed themselves and shaken their heads, muttering something in Spanish about bad air. The room itself was a paradox. It was at the far end of the west wing, the last door on the left. The paint on the door was not peeling. The brass number 9 was not tarnished. The "Do Not Disturb" sign, a small plastic rectangle, hung permanently from the knob. Its red letters faded to a pale anemic pink. The window that faced the parking lot was always dark, its thick mustard yellow curtains always drawn, but the room was not dead. It consumed electricity. I had checked the meters in the maintenance closet. Room 9 drew a steady, consistent, and low-level amount of power day and night, the kind of power draw you'd see from a single, low-wattage light bulb, and maybe an old, inefficient clock radio. My quiet, ordered life was built around this one, singular and deeply unsettling mystery, and for 6 years I had been content to let it remain one. But then Mr. Gable died. A heart attack, swift and efficient in his sleep. His estranged daughter, a brisk, no-nonsense woman from the city, inherited the motel. And her first order of business was to modernize. A team of contractors descended upon the starlight vista, and the comfortable, dusty silence of my life was shattered by the sound of hammers and power saws. They were replacing the carpets, updating the wiring, and, to my horror, installing a new computerized reservation system. The leather-bound ledger, my strange anachronistic Bible, was to be retired. I knew my time was running out. The new system would not tolerate the gentle, unspoken mystery of J. Corbin. It would demand a credit card number, a check-in date, a digital footprint. The ghost in my machine was about to be exorcised by an IT professional. I had to know. I had to understand. Before the bulldozers of the 21st century paved over the one true and profound mystery of my life. The night before the new system was scheduled to go online, I made my decision. The contractors were gone. The motel was quiet, save for the hum of the ice machine and the snores of a traveling salesman in room 3. I took the master key, a heavy old-fashioned brass key that I had never in 6 years had a reason to use for room 9. My footsteps echoed in the empty parking lot as I walked towards the west wing. The air was cold and still. The buzzing of the neon sign seemed to grow louder, more insistent, as I approached the door. I stood before it for a long moment, my heart a frantic, trapped bird in my chest. The faded "Do Not Disturb" sign seemed to mock me. My hand trembled as I slid the key into the lock. It turned with a smooth, silent, and well-oiled click that was deeply, profoundly unnerving. I took a deep breath, the air tasting of asphalt and impending revelation, and I pushed the door open. The room was not what I expected. It was not a dusty, forgotten time capsule. It was not the squalid den of a recluse. It was a waiting room. The room was immaculate. The bed, a standard Motel-issue double, was made with military precision. The cheap polyester bedspread pulled taut, not a single wrinkle on its surface. The carpet, a swirling psychedelic pattern of orange and brown, was perfectly vacuumed. There was not a speck of dust on the faux wood headboard or the formica top of the small round table. But the room was not empty. On the table, next to a small bakelite lamp that was emitting a soft, warm, golden glow, was a single open book. And sitting in the room's only armchair, a worn vinyl monstrosity the color of a bruised avocado, was a man. He was old, but it was an age that was impossible to quantify. He was dressed in a simple, gray, and slightly old-fashioned suit. His face was a road map of wrinkles, but his eyes, a pale, washed-out blue, were clear, sharp, and utterly, completely ancient. He was not a ghost. He was solid. He was real. And he was looking directly at me. He did not seem surprised. He seemed patient, as if he had been waiting for me to open that door for a very, very long time. "Arthur," he said, his voice a low, soft, and impossibly tired sound. "You're early. I wasn't expecting you for another 17 years. I stared at him, my mind a screaming white noise chaos of disbelief. Who are you?" I stammered. "Are you Jay Corbin?" He smiled a faint, sad, and deeply weary smile. "In a manner of speaking, it's a professional name, a designation. You can call me Jonas." "What is this place?" I whispered, my eyes darting around the clean, sterile, and utterly soulless room. "What have you been doing in here for 39 years?" "Waiting," he said simply, "and working." He gestured to the open book on a table. I took a hesitant step into the room. The air was still and cool, and it had a strange, neutral, almost non-existent smell. It was like the air in a clean room, a place where the outside world was not allowed to enter. I looked at the book. It was a ledger, identical to the one I used at the front desk, and it was open to today's date. All the rooms were marked as vacant, except for one, Room 9, J. Corbin, and beneath it a new line had been added in the same neat and precise cursive. Arthur Penhaligon, 11:17 p.m., my name. I looked up at him, a cold, creeping dread, far worse than any simple, superstitious fear, beginning to seep into my bones. "What is this?" "I'm a clerk, Arthur," Jonas said, his ancient blue eyes holding mine. "Just like you. A manager of a very specific and very necessary kind of roadside motel." He gestured around the room. "This isn't just a room, it's a layover, a transfer station, a place between the road you were on and the one you're about to be on." I don't understand," I said, my voice trembling. "You're not supposed to," he said, his voice gentle. "Not yet. Your reservation isn't for another 17 years, but you've opened the door. You've checked in early. And the rules are very strict about early check-ins." My mind was reeling, trying to process the sheer cosmic impossibility of his words. This was not a man. This was something else. And this motel, my quiet, predictable, and boring little motel, was a part of it. "What are you?" I whispered. "I am the one who helps the lost find their way," he said. "The ones who die on the road. The ones who are untethered. A car crash on the interstate, a lonely heart attack in a room that isn't their own. A soul that has, for one reason or another, missed its exit. They get stuck in the static between the stations. This place, this room, is a beacon, a quiet, stable place in the storm. And I am the one who sits here and waits for them to find their way to the front desk." I thought of the thousands of lives that had passed through the starlight vista, the salesmen, the families, the lovers, and I thought of the others, the quiet ones, the ones who checked in and never checked out, the small, forgotten tragedies that are the lifeblood of any place that is built on the lonely, anonymous promise of the open road. "And what do you do with them?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "I check them in," he said. "I give them a key, and I help them to understand that the trip they were on is over, and that a new one is about to begin." He looked at me, and his eyes were filled with a sadness that was as old and as deep as the universe itself. My work is very important, Arthur. It requires quiet. It requires discretion. It requires a place that is constant. I understood then. The reservation, the untouched room, the low, steady hum of the electricity. It was all a part of it, an anchor, a lighthouse for the lost souls of the highway, and my mundane, boring, and quiet little life had been lived unknowingly in the shadow of this profound and terrifying cosmic machinery. "But why me?" I asked. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you opened the door," he said, his voice taking on a new, graver tone. "And because my own reservation is coming due. I have been a clerk here for a very, very long time. My own journey is about to continue, and a place like this can never be left unattended." The implication of his words hit me with the force of a physical blow. The room seemed to tilt, the walls closing in. "No," I said, shaking my head. "No, I have a life. I am a clerk at a motel." "You were a clerk at a motel," he corrected gently. "But you chose to open a door that was not meant for you. You have seen behind the curtain, Arthur, and once you have seen, you cannot unsee. You are a part of the mechanism now." He stood up, his movement slow and stiff, like a man who had been sitting in the same chair for 1,000 years. He walked over to me, and he placed a heavy, cold brass key in my hand. It was the master key for room 9. "Your training was supposed to be gradual," he said, his voice a soft, tired whisper in my ear. "Over the next 17 years, you would have begun to see, to understand. But now you will have to learn on the job." He walked past me, towards the open door of the room. He did not look back. He stepped out into the dark, silent parking lot of my world, and he dissolved. He didn't vanish in a puff of smoke. He just faded. He became a part of the darkness, a part of the quiet, a part of the lonely, endless night of the open road. I was alone in the room, the clean, sterile waiting room. The book was still on the table, open to my name. The soft, golden light of the lamp was still glowing. I was the new clerk, the new manager, the new J. Corbin. I walked out of the room and pulled the door shut. It clicked with a soft, final sound. I hung the faded "Do Not Disturb" sign back on the knob. I walked back to the front desk, the heavy brass key in my pocket, a cold, heavy weight. The new computerized reservation system was installed the next day, but when the technician tried to input the data for room 9, the system crashed. They tried 3 times. Every time, the same result. The new digital world could not comprehend the old analog and cosmic truth of that room. In the end, they just left it alone, a single, anomalous, and permanent booking in a system that was otherwise perfect, a ghost in the new machine. My life is different now. It is still quiet. It is still nocturnal. I am still the clerk at a roadside motel. But I have a new set of responsibilities. I still make the coffee. I still read the paper. But now I also watch. And I listen. And sometimes, in the dead of night, a new guest will arrive. They will look confused and lost and afraid. They will not have a reservation, but I will know their name. I will check them in, and I will give them a key to a room that is not on any map, a quiet, clean, and peaceful room, a place where they can rest before they continue on their journey. I have 17 years until my own check-in, 17 years to be the quiet, patient, and necessary guardian of the lost souls of the Starlight Vista. It is a strange and lonely and sometimes terrifying job. But I have come to understand that it is also a profound and deeply and strangely sacred one. The road is long and the night is dark, and everyone eventually needs a place to rest, and I am the one who leaves the light on. And that's where this story ends. Let's move on to the next one. Housekeeping logs listed guests who never checked in but ordered daily room service. I took the job at the Bellwether because the alternative was sleeping under the Morrison Bridge with the other ghosts of Portland's homeless. Not literal ghosts, though after Bellwether I wasn't so sure. Just ghosts of people. The kind with hollow eyes and cardboard signs that said anything helps. My savings vanished when the tech startup I'd bet my 20s on folded overnight. My apartment followed when rent swallowed my severance. The Craigslist ad was a fluke, posted at 3 a.m., no photos, just a phone number and a promise. Housekeeping supervisor, 25 al cash, immediate start, must ignore anomalies. The voice on the other end was female, brittle, speaking through the static of a dying landline. Be here by 6 a.m., bring your own gloves, and for God's sake, don't read the logs. The Bellwether Hotel wasn't on any map, nestled in a forgotten alley behind Chinatown's rotten pagodas. It was a 1920s Art Deco corpse draped in ivy and pigeon filth. Its lobby doors were chained shut, the glass panes fogged with decades of grime. I knocked on a service entrance marked Staff Only Biosolids Removal. A woman opened it. Late 60s, hair dyed an unnatural violet, uniform stiff with starch despite the frayed cuffs. Her name tag read Doris Rooms. She didn't smile. You're late. Logs are in the cart, sheets in the bin, vacuums broken, and don't touch the silver tray on room 13's cart. She shoved a rusted janitor's cart at me, its wheels shrieking like tortured cats. Start with floors 4 through 6. Skip 13. Always skip 13. The cart held a battered clipboard. The Bellwether housekeeping log ledger, leather-bound, water-stained, filled with cramped handwriting and fading blue ink. Room numbers, dates, standard stuff, until I flipped to last week. Room 1301, March 12th. Guest, Mr. Alistair Finch, checked in. Never room service order, 2 eggs over easy, black coffee, wheat toast. Notes, tray left outside door at 8:03 a.m. Returned at 8:47 a.m. Plate empty. Coffee cup refilled with rainwater. Room 1307, March 13th. Guest, Miss Eleanor Voss. Checked in. Never room service order, chicken broth, saltines, glass of warm milk. Notes, tray untouched, broth congealed, milk curdled, saltines arranged in a circle around the bowl. Eleanor Voss. From Camp Everstill. The name hit me like a fist. I'd read her journal entry about the hole in the woods, about Sarah Miller. How was she here? In a hotel log? Doris appeared beside me, materializing from the shadows of a hallway. I told you not to read them. Her voice was flat. Those guests aren't ours. They're tenants, and tenants pay their dues. She tapped the log with a bony finger. Room service isn't for eating. It's for remembering. What does that mean? She turned away, pushing her own cart down the hall. The Bellwether doesn't forget. It collects, like a spider's web. Grief, regret. The things people leave behind when they die alone in cheap motel rooms. The stillness is hungry, and room service feeds it. She paused at a door marked Staff Only. Your cart's got a full shift, and the silver tray on 13's cart, that's not for you. That's for her. Room 13's cart sat at the end of the fourth-floor hallway. On it rested a tarnished silver tray, covered by a frayed linen cloth. I lifted the cloth. No food, just a single teacup, cracked porcelain, stained brown at the rim. My mother's teacup, the one I'd smashed against the Ravenswood Grand's mirror months ago, the one I'd left in a dumpster behind a Greyhound station in Boise. It sat on the tray, filled to the brim with black liquid that smelled of lake water and wet roses. I dropped the cloth, backed away. My hand shook. This wasn't possible. This was my grief, my ghost, not some hotel's. Doris found me slumped against the wall. She didn't ask why I was crying, just pressed a fresh logbook into my hands. New shift, new rules. You clean the rooms. You log what you see. You don't question the orders, and you never look in the mirrors after midnight. She pointed to a streak of grime on the wall. That's not dirt. It's residue from when guests try to claw their way out of the glass. I worked in silence. Floors 4 through 6 were tombs. Dust lay thick as snow on velvet drapes and clawfoot tubs. In room 412, I found a suitcase under the bed, packed with 1940s women's clothes, a floral dress, stockings, a pearl necklace. The log entry for that room read, Room 4012, March 14th. Guest, Mrs. Evelyn Shaw checked in. Never room service order. Gin martini, extra dry, bowl of olives. Notes, olives replaced with lake stones. Gin bottle filled with black water. Martini glass left on windowsill facing the alley. The stones were smooth, river polished. One had a scratch in the shape of a child's handprint. I pocketed it. A mistake. That night, I couldn't sleep in the staff quarters. A windowless basement room smelling of bleach and despair. At 2:17 a.m., the intercom crackled to life. Not Doris's voice, a child's, gurgling, wet. Room service for room 1313, please. The logbook lay open on my cot. I flipped to today's date. Blank. I grabbed a pen. My hand moved on its own. Room 1313, March 15. Guest, Sarah Miller. Checked in, never room service order. Grilled cheese sandwich, chocolate milk, apple slices. Notes, I stopped writing. Sarah Miller, the girl from the lake at Camp Everstill. The one buried in the woods. The one who sang Row, row, row your boat from the dark water. I tore the page out, threw it in the trash. But when I turned back, the logbook was open again. The entry was there, complete, my handwriting. But the note section now read, plate licked clean, chocolate milk poured into floorboards, apple core placed on pillow. Guest requested the story about the boat, but housekeeper refused. Guest wept. Sound recorded, 37 seconds of sobbing, transferred to archive. The intercom crackled again, louder, closer. You forgot the story. I ran to the service elevator. The button for 13 was uncovered, glowing faintly green. I pressed it. The door slid open on darkness. The smell hit me first, roses, wet earth, the metallic tang of deep water, and beneath it, the sweet rot of forgotten fruit. Floor 13 wasn't sealed. It was waiting. The hallway stretched into impossible darkness, lit only by sconces dripping black wax. Every door stood ajar. From within came the clink of cutlery, the murmur of voices, the sigh of a bed settling under unseen weight. I followed the sound of a child humming. Stopped at room 1313. The door was open. Inside, moonlight streamed through a window overlooking a void, not the city, but an endless black lake. On the bed sat Sarah Miller, not bloated, not blue, just a girl in a yellow sundress, her hair damp, her feet dangling above the floor. On the nightstand sat the silver tray, empty plates, a glass of chocolate milk, half drunk, an apple core on the pillow. She looked up. Her eyes were the color of lake silt. "You didn't bring the story?" "I don't know any stories," I whispered. "You do." She patted the space beside her on the bed. "The one about the boat. The one that doesn't sink. I can't stay. Everyone stays." She pointed to the corner. A chair sat facing the window. In it sat a figure. A woman in a floral dress, her back turned, her shoulders shaken with silent sobs. Eleanor Voss. From the journal. From the hole. She forgot her story, so the lake took it. Now she waits for someone to remember for her. Sarah's voice dropped to a whisper. The bellwether collects stories, the sad ones, the ones that end in rain. A key turned in the lock. Doris stood in the doorway, her violet hair a halo in the gloom. She didn't seem surprised. "Time to go, dear. Staff curfew?" She nodded at Sarah. "Guest 1313, your tray will be refreshed at dawn with the story." Sarah smiled, a smile too wide for her face. "Tomorrow. I'll wait." Back in the basement, Doris made tea on a hot plate. Not in mugs, in hotel room service cups. "You saw her," she said, not looking at me. "Sarah Miller, drowned in Blackwater Lake, 1987. Her mother threw herself in after. The lake couldn't keep them both. So the bellwether took the grief, took the need to be remembered." She slid a cup toward me. The liquid was black. "Smelled of roses. This hotel isn't haunted by the dead. It's haunted by the unfinished, the apologies never spoken, the goodbyes never said, the stories never told. Room service is how we feed them, how we keep the stillness from spilling out into the world." "Why me?" I asked, my voice raw. She finally met my eyes. Hers were the color of old bruises. "Because you carry a story. Your mother's. The one you never finished telling her before the cancer took her voice. You left it in that teacup you broke. The bellwether found it, like it finds all lost things." She tapped the logbook on the table. "They're not guests, they're vacancies, and vacancies must be filled." I didn't sleep. At dawn, I found the archive. It wasn't a room. It was a closet behind a boiler, shelves lined with cassette tapes labeled in the same blue ink as the logs. Eleanor Voss, Hole in the Woods, Alistair Finch, Rainwater Coffee, Mildred Calloway, The Chair on 13, and one labeled Alice, Mother's Teacup. My name, my pain. I played it. My own voice, shaky with tears. And I never told her I forgave her for leaving me with Dad. I never said I understood why she stayed with him after he hit her. I just stopped visiting. After the hospice called, I was too ashamed to go. The last thing I saw was that stupid teacup on her nightstand, the one with the chip on the handle. I threw it against the wall when I got home, shards everywhere, like us. The tape ended with static, then a child's whisper, "She wants you to sit to finish the story." I quit that day, packed my duffel. Doris didn't try to stop me, just handed me an envelope stuffed with cash. "The stillness follows you," she said, her hand brushing mine. Her skin was cold. "It always finds the unfinished." I drove east, stopped in a Nebraska town called Willow Creek, rented a studio above a hardware store. No hotel logos on the towels, no room service menus under the door. I bought new dishes, threw out the rock with the child's handprint, buried it in the backyard. For 3 weeks it worked. Then the teacup appeared, not on a silver tray, on my kitchen counter. My mother's cracked porcelain cup, filled with black water that smelled of roses. The logbook sat beside it, open to a fresh page. My handwriting, Room 13, March 29. Guest, Alice, mother's daughter. Checked in, never room service order, nothing. Notes, guest refuses to sit, refuses to remember. Tray left outside door, returned untouched. Cup refilled with lake water. Guest's shadow seen in window at 3 a.m., facing the alley. I threw the cup against the wall. It shattered. I swept the pieces into the trash. The next morning, it was whole again. On the counter, full. The logbook entry had changed. Notes, guest broke vessel. Vessel repaired. Guest's shadow now sits in the chair, facing the window, waiting for the story. I packed the car that night, headed for the coast. Stopped at a motel in Santa Cruz, neon signs, salty air, the roar of the Pacific. Room 7, ocean view. I covered the bathroom mirror with a towel, pushed the single armchair into the closet. At 3:13 a.m., I woke to the smell of roses. The room was freezing. Moonlight bled through the window, and in the center of the room, facing the ocean, sat the chair. Not the motel's plastic one, the armchair from room 1313 at the Bellwether, floral upholstery frayed at the edges. On the seat cushion lay the teacup, full. The ocean's roar faded. In its place, the gentle lap of black water against the shore. Sarah Miller stood in the corner, dripping lake water onto the carpet. "She's waiting," she said. Her voice echoed with the sound of children singing underwater. "The story won't end until you tell it." Behind her, the window wasn't glass anymore. It was the surface of Blackwater Lake, and beneath it, sitting on the silt-covered floor in a circle of bones, were the faces from the logs. Eleanor Voss, Alistair Finch, Mildred Calloway, all facing upward, all holding teacups filled with dark water, all watching me. Sarah pointed to the chair. "Sit, finish the story, then you can rest." I walked to the chair. The wood was warm. The floral pattern felt familiar, like the armchair in my mother's living room, the one she died in. I sat down. The scraping stopped. The cold lifted. The smell of roses faded, replaced by antiseptic and the faint scent of my mother's lavender hand cream. Moonlight warmed my face. Outside the window, the lake water cleared. My mother floated there, not bloated or broken, but as I remembered her before the sickness, soft eyes, gentle smile. She pressed a palm against the glass. Her mouth moved. No sound came through, but I knew the words. She'd whispered them to me the last time I saw her conscious. "I'm sorry I wasn't stronger." Behind her, in the dark water, the others watched, not with hunger, with patience, waiting for their own stories to be told. The teacup on my lap filled itself, not with lake water, with hot, steaming Earl Grey, the way she used to make it. I lifted it to my lips. The warmth spread through my chest. The words came then, unbidden, as smooth as the tea. "It's not your fault, Mom. I know you tried. I forgive you. I forgive me. I should have been there. I should have held your hand." Tears streamed down my face, hot and cleansing. "I love you. I always did." The cup emptied itself. My mother's reflection smiled. Not the broken smile of hospice, the smile from my childhood photos, the one that crinkled the corners of her eyes. She raised a hand, not in farewell, in peace. Sarah Miller took my hand. Her skin was cool but not clammy. "Good," she whispered. "Now you remember. Now you can stay." She led me to the window. The glass rippled like water. I stepped through. The lake was warm, silent. The others made room in their circle. Mildred Calloway patted the silt beside her. Alistair Finch offered me a teacup filled with starlight. Eleanor Voss hummed a tune I almost recognized. Above us, the surface shimmered. Through it, I saw the motel room. The chair sat empty, facing the window. The teacup on the cushion was gone. In its place lay the logbook. Open, the final entry read, Room 13, March 23. Guest, Alice, mother's daughter, checked in, forever. Room service order, peace. Notes, story completed. Guest seated. Vacancy filled. Downstairs, the motel clerk checked the ledger. No record of room 7 ever being occupied. But at the Bellwether Hotel, Doris placed a fresh logbook on the cart for floor 13. She wrote one entry, Room 1314, March 24. Guest, the clerk from Santa Cruz, checked in. Never room service order. Coffee, black. Notes, tray left, outside door. Returned empty. Cup refilled with rainwater. She covered the cart with a linen cloth. On top, she placed a single item, a motel room. Key card, still warm from a human hand. The elevator chimed. Doris pressed the button for 13. The doors closed. The stillness waited. That's where this story ends. Let's continue with the next. The mall that shut down. Years ago, still announces sales at midnight. We didn't go to Holloway Galleria for ghosts. We went for footage. Cass needed B-roll for her documentary, Retail Ruin, The Death of the American Mall. And Holloway was the crown jewel of decay, a 1.2 million square foot monument to 1980s success. Shuttered overnight in 2007 when its anchor tenant, a regional department store chain, imploded in a fraud scandal. No fire, no collapse, just a silent corporate vanishing act. Doors locked, lights extinguished, security guards dismissed via email, and left to rot. Marble floors cracked by frost heaves, skylights shattered by hail, kiosks swallowed by creeping ivy that snaked in through broken vents. It was supposed to be empty, just dust, pigeons, and the slow, dignified collapse of drywall. But the rumors wouldn't die, not the usual ones. No vanishing teenagers, no spectral janitors, just this. Every night at midnight, the PA system crackles to life. A Taz, woman's voice, calm, polished, retail perfect, announces a sale, always the same sale, always the same department, always ending with the same phrase. Remember, loyalty is rewarded. Cass scoffed. Probably a backup battery feeding a loop tape, or a prankster with a Bluetooth speaker. Theo, ever the skeptic with the spectrum analyzer, nodded. If it's real, I'll catch the carrier wave. If not, we get great decay shots. And me? I just needed to see it. Because 10 years ago, exactly 10 years ago, my sister Mara vanished from Holloway Galleria. Not abducted, not lost. Announced. Her name, Mara Reed. Flashed on the directory board beside Security Office, Lost Child. For 3 days after she disappeared. Then it vanished, like she'd never existed. The police report listed her as voluntary departure. No evidence, no witnesses, just a pink raincoat left draped over a bench outside Spencer's Gifts. Pockets empty, except for a single dried juniper berry. I never believed she left. I believed the mall took her. So on the 10th anniversary, November 13th, 2025, we went back. Midnight. The chain-link fence surrounding Holloway was rusted through in places, sagging like a tired spine. We slipped through a gap near the old food court entrance, boots crunching on broken glass and frozen mulch. The air inside wasn't stale. It was preserved. The smell hit me first. Lemon-scented floor wax, cinnamon pretzels, and beneath it, the dry, papery scent of old paperbacks from the long-gone Walden books. Not decay, not mildew, memory. As if the building had sealed itself in amber the moment the last shopper left. Our headlamps cut narrow cones through the dark. The atrium loomed ahead. 3 stories of dead escalators, a skeletal fountain crusted with white mineral deposits, a giant, moth-eaten banner still strung across the balcony. Holloway Galleria, where friendship begins. We moved deeper. Stores gaped like eye sockets. Radio shack. Shelves bare, cords trailing from empty display cases like severed veins. The Gap. Mannequins still posed, one arm raised, fingers curled as if holding an invisible shirt. Spencer's Gifts. Black light posters peeled at the corners, a single rubber skull grinning from the counter. Cass filmed. Theo scanned frequencies. I walked ahead. Drawn. To the center. To the old customer service kiosk. A curved island of faux wood laminate. Nameplate still legible. How may I help you? Behind it, mounted on the wall, the PA console, brushed steel, buttons labeled all call, security, directory, sales, dusty, dead. Theo checked his analyzer. 0 EMF, no power on the grid. This place is cold. Cass checked her watch. 11:58 p.m. 2 minutes. If it's a hoax, it'll start soon. We waited. Silence. Not peaceful. Thick. Like cotton packed in the ears. 11:59. The draft moved. Through the atrium, not from outside, from the ventilation shafts. Smelling of ozone and burnt sugar. Theo's analyzer flickered. A spike. Low frequency. 0.7 hertz infrasound. The range that vibrates the human eyeball. Makes you see shadows. Feel watched. Feel hungry. Midnight. The PA system crackled, not static. A clearing of the throat. Wet. Professional. Familiar. Then, the voice. Female. Mid-50s. Warm. Smiling. The voice of a woman who'd spent 30 years saying, "Have a nice day." With absolute sincerity. Good evening, shoppers. Holloway Galleria is pleased to announce a special Midnight Madness sale tonight only. In the children's department, room 214, everything is 50% off. Dresses, shoes, raincoats, hairbrushes, juniper berry necklaces, all must go. Remember, loyalty is rewarded. The voice cut off. Silence rushed back, denser now, heavier. Cass lowered her camera. Okay, that was not a tape. Theo stared at his screen. The carrier wave, it's not radio, it's acoustic, resonating through the building structure, like the whole mall is humming. I didn't move, because beneath the voice I'd heard it, a whisper, layered beneath the polished tone, Mara's voice, faint, terrified. Eli, don't come. The sale isn't real. The discount is a lie. They're not selling things. They're selling names. I walked toward the escalators. The up escalator to the second floor, frozen mid-motion, rusted steps like broken teeth. I stepped on. The others followed. The children's department. Room 214, not a store, a suite. 2 connected spaces, once a toy store and a children's boutique, merged behind a false wall, no signage, just a door. Plain white, with a single word stenciled in black. Loyalty. The handle turned. Inside, light. Not battery-powered, not generator-fed. Ambient. A soft, greenish glow rising from the floor. The room was set up like a boutique. Racks of tiny dresses, pink, yellow, blue, on miniature mannequins, rows of shoes neatly paired. A display table of hairbrushes, bristles tangled with strands of hair, blonde, red, black, brown. And in the center, a rack of raincoats, pink, all identical, all labeled. Mara Reed, size 6, final sale. I reached for one. The fabric wasn't nylon. Skin, preserved, stretched, stitched at the seams with black thread. The hood lined with soft russet fur, not rabbit. Hair. Mara's hair. I knew the shade, the texture, the way it caught the light. Cass gasped, pointed at the far wall, a full-length mirror, fogged, words written in condensation. Your discount is waiting, Elias. 50% off your name. Pay in memories. Collect your purchase in the back room. Theo backed toward the door. Eli, look. He pointed at the floor. The green light wasn't ambient. It pulsed from beneath the tile. Between the cracks, thin lines of phosphorescent green forming a pattern, not random, a floor plan. Holloway Galleria, but altered. The food court, gone. The atrium collapsed. And in its place, a new structure. Deep underground, labeled in glowing script, the Loyalty Center. Department of Rewards. Room B7, below it, words. All sales final, no returns, no refunds. Loyalty is rewarded. The PA crackled again, not the announcer, a child's voice, clear, singing. Back and forth, hand in hand, across the dark, across the land. Mara's song, from the basement, the thump, 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 began, not from the walls, from the floor, like a heart or a fist, knocking. The raincoats on the rack twitched, not wind, breathing. Cass grabbed my arm. Eli, we need to go. Now. I didn't move, because the mirror fogged again. New words. You swore an oath, pinky swear. If one of us falls, the other jumps too. You jumped, Elias, but you didn't land. You were caught. I remembered, not the fall, the promise. Mara and I, 7 and 9, playing near the fountain. She leaned too far, slipped, fell into the shallow water. I jumped in after her, laughing, splashing, but the water wasn't shallow. It deepened. The fountain wasn't stone, it was a mouth. And as we sank, green light flaring around us, a voice whispered, Loyalty is rewarded. We didn't drown. We were hired. Mara, junior loyalty associate. Me, security trainee. Our first task, bring back the others, the ones who broke their oaths, the ones who forgot. The PA crackled one last time, the announcer's voice, softer now, sad. Final call for Elias Reed. Your discount expires in 5 minutes. Proceed to the Loyalty Center, room B7. Your sister is waiting. She's been very patient. A pause. Then Mara's whisper, raw with tears. Please, Eli, say you're loyal. Say it, or they'll mark you. Absent. The raincoats began to unzip, not mechanically, biologically. Zippers sliding down spines, hoods peeling back, revealing faces, not mannequins. Children, dozens of them, eyes closed, mouths sewn shut with black thread, hands folded over the chests, all wearing pink raincoats, all with russet hair, all Mara. The mirror fogged. Final words. Absent students, go to the office. Absent customers, go to the basement. Absent brothers, get replaced. The door behind us slammed shut. The bolt slid home. The green light flared, and from the floor the thump, thump, thump became a roar. The tile cracked, not breaking, opening. A staircase descended, not concrete, bone. Vertebrae fused into steps, glowing green. At the bottom, light, and the smell, apples, rotting, and river mud. Lena's voice, no, Mara's voice, rose from the dark, clear, calm. Come on, Elias, it's time for your reward. I looked at Cass, at Theo. Their eyes weren't theirs anymore. Black, like river stones. They walked to the staircase, descended without hesitation. I followed, not because I wanted to, because the oath pulled, because the mall remembered, because loyalty, once sworn, is forever. The stairs ended in a circular chamber, the loyalty center, walls lined with lockers, each labeled with a name. Cassandra Voss, reward, eternal customer. Theodore Kim, reward, perpetual technician. Elena Mara Reed, reward, junior loyalty associate. And one, empty. Elias Reed, reward, pending. In the center, a desk, laminate, nameplate. How may I help you? Behind it, a woman, mid-50s, warm smile, eyes full of green gold light. She wore a pink raincoat, held a hairbrush, bristles tangled with russet hair. "Welcome back, Elias," she said, Mara's voice, but older, smoother, layered with the announcer's polish. "You're just in time for the final sale." She slid a form across the desk, not paper, skin, stretched, stitched at the edges. At the top, loyalty oath, final acceptance. Below, blank lines. Name. Discount claimed. Payment. Signature. A pen lay beside it, bone, femur, tip sharpened to a point, dipped in black ink, not ink, dried blood. Mara, the woman, smiled. "Just sign, Elias. Say you're loyal. Say you remember the promise. Say you'll stay. And your reward is her." She gestured to the left. A curtain parted, a swing, bone, chains thick as wrists, 2 seats, one small, one tall. Mara sat in the small one, 7 years old, freckles, russet hair, alive, smiling. "Come on, Daddy," she whispered. "The swing needs 3. I picked up the pen. The bone was warm, alive. I looked at the form, the blank lines, and I understood. The discount wasn't 50% off, it was 50% of your name. Pay in memories, collect your sister, but the price was to stay, to become part of the staff, to man the PA, to greet the next lost child, to whisper, "Loyalty is rewarded," into the static. The pen touched the skin form, the ink spread, not black, green, glowing, and as I wrote, Elias Reed. The letters didn't sit on the surface. They sank in like roots, like chains, like a promise finally kept. Mara on the swing smiled. The chains began to hum. The green light filled the chamber, and from the PA above, my voice now calm, polished, retail perfect, announced, "Good evening, shoppers. Holloway Galleria is pleased to announce a special Midnight Madness sale. Tonight only. In the security office, room B7. Everything is 50% off. Brothers, sisters, memories, oaths, all must go. Remember, loyalty is rewarded." The mall doesn't close. It hires. It gathers the lost, the broken-hearted, the ones who swore on pinky promises, on raincoats, on swings that they'd never let go. And when they return, the sale is always waiting. The discount is always ready. And the reward is her. Smiling on the swing, waiting for you to finally sign. Because the most terrifying thing about Holloway Galleria isn't the midnight announcements. It's the moment you realize you're the next voice on the PA. And the sale never ends. It just cycles. For the next customer, the next brother, the next oath, waiting to be claimed in the green-lit dark, where loyalty is always rewarded and all sales are final. And that's where this story ends. Let's move on to the next one. The sign said, "Do not stay after sunset." We stayed. Leo found the place on a sketchy app called Free Stays. It showed a photo of a crumbling lakeside resort. Peeling white paint, broken porch swing, weeds growing through cracked concrete stairs. The description read, Silver Pines Retreat, Vintage Charm, Free. Leave cash donation in lockbox, no rules. At the bottom, in smaller letters, someone had added, Ignore the sign at the gate. Leo, desperate after his latest video flopped and his girlfriend left him, waved his phone in my face while we ate cold pizza in our mold-smelling apartment. Dude, free is free. Perfect for my Abandoned America series. Golden hour shots over the lake? Ghost stories? We'll blow up. I should have said no. I knew that reckless glint in his eyes, the same one that led us to Willow Creek Lodge and the concrete tunnel. But my wallet was empty. The rent was due, and the photo looked peaceful. Just an old place forgotten by time. I agreed. Getting there was a nightmare. GPS died miles back. Rain started, turning the dirt road to mud. Our car's headlights cut through the downpour, illuminating skeletal trees. Then we saw the gate, rusty iron bars chained shut. Taped to it, a hand-painted wooden sign, the words chipped but clear in our headlights. Do not stay after sunset, for your safety. Management. Below it, spray-painted in red. LOL YOLO. Jake, 2019. Leo snorted. Typical scare tactic. Probably keeps kids from trashing the place. He rattled the chain. It snapped easily, rust eating through the links. See? No big deal. He shoved the gate open with a screech that echoed in the wet woods. My stomach tightened. The sign didn't feel like a joke. It felt like a warning from someone who knew. Silver Pines wasn't charming. It was a corpse. The main building sagged like a starving animal. Most windows were boarded or shattered. The porch roof had caved in over the entrance. The air smelled of wet, rot, dead leaves, and something faintly sweet, like forgotten fruit in a damp cellar. No bird sang. No frogs croaked from the nearby lake we could hear lapping in the dark. Just the drumming rain and the groan of old wood settling. Leo set up his camera on the porch, filming the storm. Atmospheric! He grinned, but his hands were shaking. I found the lockbox nailed to the rotting post. Inside, a rusty key and a note on yellowed paper. Cash in envelope. Rooms unassigned. Use what you need. Do not stay after sunset. The handwriting was the same as the sign. Sharp, afraid. Inside was worse. The lobby was a tomb. Dust hung thick in the weak light from our flashlights. Velvet curtains hung in shreds. Furniture lay overturned under ghostly white sheets. A massive stone fireplace was full of dead leaves and broken glass. The silence was heavy, thick, pressing against my ears. Only the rain and a low, almost subsonic hum vibrating through the floorboards. It wasn't machinery. It felt alive, like the building was breathing. Leo ignored it, filming cobwebs and peeling wallpaper. This place is gold, Ben, pure gold. He pointed his light at a reception desk. Behind it sat a thick, leather-bound ledger. Its cover was cracked and stiff. Against all reason, I opened it. The pages were brittle, filled with elegant script listing guest names and room numbers from the 1940s and 50s. The last entry was dated October 30th, 1955. Silas Thorne, room 13. Permanent. Below it, the page was blank. Until I turned it. There, in fresh dark ink that glistened like wet blood, were two new lines. Leo Vance, room 7. Ben Carter, room 8. My blood turned to ice. Leo, look at this. My voice sounded thin. He peered over my shoulder. His smile vanished. "What the hell? That ink's wet. How did it know our names?" He flipped back frantically. All other entries were decades old. This was new. Too new. The hum deepened, vibrating the dust on the desk. The rain seemed to hush. Outside, the air grew colder, carrying that sweet rot smell stronger now. Leo snapped the ledger shut. "Okay, weird. Probably some creep messing with us, but look!" He shone his light out a broken window. The rain had stopped. The clouds were breaking. The setting sun painted the lake in fiery orange and purple. Golden hour. We stay. We get the shots. We leave at dawn. Easy. He didn't ask me. He just started unpacking his gear. The sign's words echoed in my head. "Do not stay after sunset." But Leo's desperation was a stronger pull. We were broke. This was content. I stayed. Dinner was protein bars eaten on the porch steps, watching the sun bleed out over the water. The forest around the resort was unnaturally quiet. No crickets, no owls, just the lap of waves and the wind sighing through the pines. The resort loomed behind us, its dark windows like empty eyes. That low hum was constant now, a vibration in my teeth. As the last light faded, the temperature dropped sharply. My breath fogged in the air. Leo kept filming, his camera light cutting through the gathering gloom. "Almost dark," he murmured, not looking at me. "The real footage starts now." Darkness fell fast and thick. We used our flashlights. The beams felt weak, swallowed by the shadows inside the lobby. The hum grew louder, a deep thrumming in the floorboards. Then came the sounds, faint at first. Scritch, scritch, scritch. Like fingernails dragging slowly down the wallpaper in the hallway upstairs. It stopped outside room 7. Silence. Then a soft, wet click, like a throat clearing. I froze. Leo lowered his camera. "You hear that?" he whispered. We listened. Nothing. Then the scraping moved, stopped outside room 8. My door. I held my breath. The scraping didn't resume. It just waited. I didn't sleep. I sat on the dusty floor of room 8, back against the door, flashlight beam fixed on the hallway. The cold seeped through my jacket. The sweet rot smell was everywhere. The scraping sound never came back. But the feeling of being watched didn't leave. Dawn felt like a lifetime away. Morning light, gray and weak, finally filtered through the grimy window. The hum was gone. The cold lessened. Leo looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. "It was at my door," he said quietly over instant coffee brewed on a camping stove in the lobby. "Just standing there, breathing that wet sound. I swear I heard it breathing." He wouldn't say more. We decided to explore before filming, maybe find something interesting to shoot. The lower floors were a maze of decay. A ballroom with a shattered chandelier, a dining room with chairs scattered like bones, a kitchen coated in thick gray sludge. The smell of rot was strongest here. In a small office, we found more ledgers, all ending in 1955, and photos, faded black and whites of smiling guests by the lake. A stern man in a suit standing before the fireplace, Silas Thorne. His eyes, even in the photo, seemed to follow you. We found the old guest cabins, small wooden structures behind the main building, half swallowed by the woods. Most were collapsed. Cabin 13 stood apart, slightly cleaner, its door slightly ajar. Inside, the smell hit us first. That sweet rot stench, overwhelming, mixed with the metallic tang of old blood. The walls weren't just peeling, they were scratched. Deep, Frantic gouges covered every inch of floral wallpaper, as if something had tried desperately to claw its way out. At the foot of a stripped bed frame, the wooden floor was stained a dark, rusty brown. Leo raised his camera, his hand trembling. "This is it," he whispered. "This is the shot." He stepped closer. That's when the whispering started, not from one place, from the walls, from the floorboards, from the very air. A chorus of faint, overlapping voices, too quiet to make out words, but thick with a terrible longing and a chilling hunger. It wasn't English. It sounded older. Wrong. The subtonic hum surged, vibrating the floor under my boots, making my teeth ache. The weak morning light from the cabin window seemed to dim. "Leo!" I hissed, panic clawing at my throat. "We need to go. Now!" He didn't turn. He was focused on the viewfinder, zooming in on the scratched wall. "Just one more shot, Ben. This is real. This is gold." "Leo!" I grabbed his arm. He yelped, swinging around. His camera clattered to the dusty floor. His face was ashen. "Did you hear that?" he breathed. The whispering had stopped. The hum died. But the silence that followed was worse. Heavy. Waiting. From the darkness of the hallway behind us came a new sound. A slow, wet, dragging, like something heavy with no legs being pulled across the floor. Schlick, schlick, schlick. We ran. We didn't stop until we were back in the lobby of the main building, slamming the heavy front door shut behind us, leaning against it, gasping. The dragging sound stopped at the other side. Then a single, soft thump against the wood, like a head resting against it, waiting. We barricaded the lobby with overturned furniture, a useless gesture, but it made us feel less exposed. Hours crawled by. The weak daylight bled away. Shadows lengthened. The whispering started again, not just in the cabins now, but seeming to come from the lobby walls themselves. Faint, insistent, names. I thought I heard my own name woven into the sibilant chorus. "Ben, Ben, stay." Leo paced like a caged animal. "We can't stay here tonight," he said, his voice raw. "We drive out now. Screw the Jeep getting stuck. We walk." But the forest outside the broken windows looked different at dusk. The trees seemed closer, their branches like grasping fingers. And the whispering, it was getting louder, clearer, no longer just names, phrases. "Warm beds, hot supper, check in, stay forever." That's when I saw it, on the reception desk. The ledger lay open. I hadn't touched it since last night, but the page had turned. Below our names, written in that same dark, wet ink. Check out. Never. Leo saw it too. He made a small, broken sound. "It's not letting us leave," he whispered. "The rooms, they're not for sleeping. They're for keeping." The dragging sound started again, not from the cabins this time, from the staircase. Schlick, thud, schlick, thud. Something was coming down, slowly, deliberately. The whispering rose to a fever pitch, a cacophony of desperate voices filling the lobby. "Guests! New guests! Sign the book! Sign the book!" The hum returned, stronger, vibrating the glass in the remaining window panes. Panic seized me. "The kitchen!" I yelled. "Back way out!" We scrambled towards the service corridor. The dragging sound was on the main floor now, close. The wet breathing filled the small space behind us. We burst into the kitchen. The back door was there, warped but intact. Hope flared. I grabbed the handle, yanked. It didn't budge. Seized shut. Leo threw his shoulder against it. Nothing. The dragging stopped. The wet breathing was right behind us in the kitchen doorway. I turned slowly. It wasn't Silas Thorne. It wasn't human. It was a shape formed from the decay of the place itself. Shadows clung to it like tattered rags. Its form shifted, sometimes tall and gaunt, sometimes hunched and dragging. Its lower half, melting into the filthy floor. Made of black mold, wet plaster, and rust, its face was just a suggestion of features in the darkness, 2 points of dull, ember-like light where eyes should be. It held no weapon. It didn't need one. The air around it shimmered with cold and that cloying stench. Its mouth opened, a ragged tear in the shadow stuff, and the whispering poured out, not from its throat, but from the walls, the pipes, the very floor. Welcome home, rooms prepared, check in, check in, check in. Leo screamed, a raw animal sound. He turned and fled back towards the dining room. I followed, stumbling over debris. The thing didn't pursue. It just stood there in the kitchen doorway watching, waiting. The whispering followed us. Stay. Sign the book. Your names are there. You belong here now. Check in. We burst back into the lobby. Leo didn't hesitate. He sprinted for the main entrance. He grabbed the handles, threw his weight against the barricaded doors. They groaned, buckled slightly, but held fast. Boarded shut from the outside, he pounded on the wood, screaming for help into the encroaching night. "Let us out! Please, let us out!" I looked back toward the kitchen. The shadow figure hadn't moved. It just stood at the edge of the dining room watching. The whispering subsided to a low thrum. "Check in." It seemed to breathe with the building. Then I saw the ledger, open on the reception desk. The page had turned again. Below, check out. Never. 2 new lines had appeared, the ink glistening wetly, dark as fresh blood. Leo. Vance. Room 7. Checked in. Ben Carter. Room 8. Checked in. As I watched, the ink on my name seemed to pulse. A wave of crushing fatigue washed over me. The fear was still there, screaming in my mind, but my body felt leaden. The whispering softened, became soothing. Rest now. It breathed from the walls. Your room is ready. Warm bed. Safe. The image of that bare, dusty room filled my mind, not as a place of horror, but as a haven. The cold seeping into my bones didn't feel like threat anymore. It felt like cool sheets. The sweet rot smell was just the scent of old wood, of home. Leo had stopped pounding. He stood slumped against the doors, his face pressed to the wood. He turned slowly. His eyes were wide, but the panic was gone, replaced by a terrible, vacant calm. He looked at me, a small, serene smile touching his lips. "It's okay, Ben," he said, his voice dreamy. "The bed, it's so soft. Come see?" He turned back to the doors, not trying to open them, just leaning against them, as if listening. Check in. The walls sighed. The fatigue pulled at me like chains. The whispering wasn't in the air anymore. It was inside my skull, gentle, insistent. Your name is written. You belong. Rest. My legs gave way. I sank to my knees on the dusty lobby floor. The shadow figure was gone from the dining room doorway, but I felt its presence everywhere, in the groan of the floorboards, in the drip of the gutter outside, in the slow decay of the walls. It wasn't a monster, it was the place. Silver pines, hungry, patient, and it had us. I didn't fight it. The weight was too much. The promise of rest too sweet. I crawled towards the stairs. Each step groaned, but the sound was familiar now, comforting, like the lodge was welcoming me home. Halfway up, I looked back. Leo was no longer by the doors. He was walking slowly, peacefully, down the dark hallway towards room 7. He didn't look back. I reached the second floor landing. The hallway stretched before me, the peeling wallpaper seeming to ripple in the gloom. Room 8's door stood slightly ajar. Moonlight streamed through the gap, illuminating dust motes dancing like stars. It looked warm inside. Safe. My room. My name was written in the book. I belonged here. The whispering was a lullaby in my veins. Check in. It breathed, not from outside, but from within the very wood of the doorframe. Check in. I pushed the door open. The room was exactly as I'd left it. Bare floorboards, a stripped bed frame, the window showing the moonlit lake. But the air was warmer. The smell of decay was gone, replaced by a faint scent of lavender and old paper. On the bare springs of the bed frame lay a single, crisp white sheet. Invitation. Welcome. Home. I stepped inside. The door swung shut behind me with a soft, final click. The whispering didn't stop. It just changed. It wasn't urging me anymore. It was celebrating. A chorus of dry, papery voices, the sound of pages turning in a vast, unseen ledger. Guests arrived, rooms filled, names secured. It came from the walls, the floor, the window pane, from the rust on the bed frame, from the dust on the sill. Silver Pines was no longer silent. It was alive, and it was satisfied. I didn't get into the bed. I just stood by the window looking out at the moonlit lake. The water was still. The forest wasn't silent anymore. I could hear it breathing, a deep, slow rhythm that matched the pulse of the lodge itself. The subsonic hum was gone. In its place was a profound ancient quiet, broken only by the lap of water and the distant cry of a loon. A normal sound, but I knew better. That loon's cry echoed the whispering. "Check in," it seemed to say. "Check in." I turned from the window. The room was darker now. The moonlight had dimmed, but I could see the ledger. It lay open on the bare floorboards where no ledger had been before. My name glowed faintly on the page, the ink shimmering with that same dark warmth. Below it, the date wasn't today anymore. It was blank, waiting. The checkout date remained never. The door to the hallway was gone. The walls had shifted, the floral pattern now forming intricate spiraling patterns that seemed to draw the eye inward. The air grew warmer, heavier. The scent of lavender deepened, masking the underlined sweetness of decay. It wasn't a room anymore. It was a cell, a beautifully appointed tomb. My tomb. Leo's door was gone too, just seamless, whispering wallpaper. I didn't scream. The urge was there, buried deep, but the lodge soothed it away like a mother calming a child. Rest, the walls breathed. You are safe now. You are home. My body felt lighter, yet utterly immobile. My thoughts slowed, thickened like honey. The memory of the outside world, the car, the city, the life before the gate, began to fray. It felt distant, unimportant, a dream. This was real. The warmth, the quiet, the deep, resonant presence of Silver Pines settling around me like a comfortable blanket. My eyes grew heavy. The glowing ink of my name was the last thing I saw before the darkness pulled me under. Not sleep, not death. Something in between, a permanent check-in. The last coherent thought that flickered was understanding. Silver Pines wasn't haunted by ghosts. It was the ghost. A hungry ghost of a place, starved for life, for warmth, for the vibrant energy of guests long gone. It fed on the fear, yes, but more deeply, it fed on the surrender, on the acceptance of its embrace. Silas Thorne hadn't been the caretaker. He'd been the first course. The decades of silence weren't abandonment. They were digestion, waiting, starving. And now, fresh names were on the list. Warm bodies to fill the cold rooms. New voices to add to the whispering chorus that sustained the ancient rotting heart of the resort. Leo's serene smile flashed in my mind. He was already part of it, already singing with the walls. As the final threads of my old self dissolved into the pervasive warmth, into the soft, insistent whisper that was now my own breath, my own blood, I understood the true horror. It wasn't the dragging thing, or the scratched walls, or even the names appearing in the ledger. It was the relief. The awful, seductive comfort of giving up, of letting the hunger of the place fill the hollow spaces inside you. The resort didn't just take your life. It took your wanting to leave. It made you want to stay forever. The last thing I felt was the smooth, cool texture of the ledger's leather cover under my vanishing hand, and a profound, chilling certainty that echoed not just in the dead air of room 8, but in the very stones of silver pines, in the rustling leaves of the devouring forest, in the silent, patient earth beneath it all. We weren't trapped. We were welcome. We were home. And the guest list, written in ink that never faded, in names that never left, would never ever be complete. They were still checking in. And now so were we. The sign by the gate hadn't been a warning. It had been an invitation, one we'd foolishly accepted forever. And that's where this story ends. Let's move on to the next one. All hallway mirrors reflected the same guest, even in sealed rooms. I took the job at the Sealbach because the eviction notice was taped to my apartment door, and the only thing left in my bank account was $3.78. The Craigslist ad was sparse. Night clerk, Sealbach Hotel, $300 cash, week, must start tonight. Bring own flashlight. No photos, no address beyond downtown Nashville, alley behind the old Opera House. I found it at 11 p.m., a hulking Beaux-Arts relic from 1912, its grand entrance boarded up with plywood stamped, condemned, structural failure. The side door, marked staff entrance, hazmat only, creaked open before I could knock. Lester stood there, late 70s, spine curved like a question mark, uniform 2 sizes too big. His eyes were the color of dried blood, fixed on a point just over my shoulder. He didn't offer a handshake, just thrust a brass key into my palm. Shifts midnight to 6, front desk only, no housekeeping, no room service. You answer the phone if it rings, which it won't. You log arrivals, which there won't be. And you never look directly at the mirrors. What mirrors? I asked, shivering in the unheated hallway. All of them. He shuffled past me into the gloom, gesturing with a gnarled finger. Hallways, elevators, even the sealed rooms, they all show the same guest, the one who never checks out. He stopped at the front desk, a cavernous marble counter coated in dust. Behind it sat a ledger book bound in cracked leather. Sign in. Your name's already there. I flipped open the ledger. Every page was filled with identical entries in different handwritings, all in fading blue ink. Guest, Daniel Finch. Checked in. Never. Room, 713. Notes, mirror reflection active, sealed room confirmed, do not acknowledge. My name, Jamie Russo, was scrawled at the bottom in fresh ink. Beneath it, a new line formed as I watched. Shift start, 12:01 a.m. Lester's breath hitched. You saw it write itself, didn't you? He didn't wait for an answer. Daniel Finch, drowned in the Cumberland River, 1958, age 7. His mother jumped in after him. The river couldn't keep them both. The sealbach took what was left. He tapped the ledger. This hotel doesn't forget. It collects. Grief. Guilt. The things people bury so deep, they forget they're carrying them. The mirrors. They're not glass. They're doors. And Daniel's been waiting behind them for someone to remember him. He vanished into a service elevator before I could ask more. The doors groaned shut, sealing him in the darkness. Midnight. The lobby lights dimmed automatically, plunging the space into gloom broken only by emergency exit signs. I sat at the front desk, the ledger open before me. Dust motes danced in the weak green light. And then I saw the first mirror, mounted above the concierge desk, floor-to-ceiling tarnished silver frame. It reflected the empty lobby perfectly, except for one detail. In the glass, standing near the grand staircase, was a boy, 7 years old, dripping wet, hair plastered to his forehead, a faded blue baseball cap. He held a waterlogged teddy bear. His eyes were open, wide, unblinking. Staring directly at my reflection, I spun around. The lobby was empty. I turned back to the mirror. The boy was gone. Only my own pale, hollow-eyed face stared back. I told myself it was stress, sleep deprivation, the flickering light. But when I checked the ledger again, a new note had appeared beneath my name. Mirror sighting number 1. Guest acknowledged. 1:17 a.m. I patrolled the second-floor hallway to stay awake. Every 20 feet, a mirror hung on a wall. Each one reflected the same scene. The decaying hallway, peeling wallpaper, shattered light fixtures. But in every mirror, the boy stood in a different spot, leaning against a doorframe, sitting on the floor, drawing with invisible crayons. Standing behind me, close, enough to touch my shoulder. I kept my eyes down, focused on the carpet, a threadbare crimson pattern slick with something dark and damp. Room 214's door was boarded shut with plywood stamped, "Hazardous materials, do not enter." Yet, in the mirror opposite it, I saw the room's interior, intact. Moonlight streaming through a window, and in the center of the room, on a narrow bed, sat the boy, Daniel Finch. He rocked slowly, hugging the teddy bear. His lips moved. No sound came through the glass, but I knew the words from the Aurora Grand's key cards, from Camp Everstill's journal. He promised he'd read to me. I backed away, heart hammering. The mirror on the next landing showed him standing now, pointing at me, not with his finger, with the teddy bear's paw. 3:03 a.m. The phone rang. I jumped. The sound was deafening in the silence. I grabbed the receiver. Sealback Hotel. Static. Then a child's voice gurgling wet. "Room 713, cold, so cold. I'm sorry, we're not—" "He forgot my story," Daniel whispered. "The one about the boat, the one that doesn't sink." The line went dead. I checked the ledger. A new entry formed. Guest request. Story denied. Thermal anomaly detected in room 713. Room 713 was on the 7th floor. The elevator was out of service, its brass cage hanging open over a shaft of utter blackness. I took the stairs. Each flight grew colder. By the 5th floor, my breath fogged in the air. The 7th floor hallway was pitch black. My flashlight beam cut through the gloom, illuminating dust hanging like cobwebs. Every mirror I passed showed Daniel, closer, closer. In the last mirror before room 713, he stood right behind my reflection, his small hand resting on my shoulder. Room 713's door was sealed with police tape and a steel plate bolted over the lock. Yet moonlight bled through the keyhole, and in the mirror across the hall I saw the room clearly. Daniel sat on the bed, knees drawn to his chest. The window was open. Rain fell inside, pooling on the floorboards. He looked up, not at the window, at the mirror, at me. "Read to me," he mouthed. I ran. Back at the front desk, I packed my duffel. Screw the $300, screw Lester. I'd sleep in my car, anything but this. As I shouldered my bag, the lobby mirror caught my eye. Daniel stood alone in the reflection, not in the staircase, not behind me. In the mirror itself, stepping out of the glass like it was water, his bare feet made no sound on the marble floor. He carried the teddy bear. His baseball cap dripped dark water onto the ledger book. He opened it, turned to the page with my name, dipped a small finger into the puddle on the floor, wrote, "Jamie Russo, room 703, vacancy filled." I slammed the ledger shut, grabbed my keys, flung open the front doors, and froze. The street outside wasn't Nashville. It was a forest at twilight, ancient oaks draped in Spanish moss. Still, black lake reflecting a moon that shouldn't exist. And on the shore, facing away from me, stood Daniel. He turned, water weeds tangled in his hair. His eyes were the color of river mud. In his hand, he held a silver key card stamped 7. "Third stars. Almost time," he gurgled. I slammed the door shut, locked him, leaned against the wood, gasping. That's when I saw the note taped to the inside of the door. Neat, blocky handwriting on hotel stationery. They watch through the glass. They wait in the between. Covering the mirror traps them with you. Breaking it lets them out. The only way to leave is to let them in. Don't trust your reflection. It's not yours anymore. Eleanor Voss. From Camp Everstill. From the bellwether logs. How is this connected? My head spun. I remembered the hole in the woods. The bones wrapped in burlap. The journal entry about the warm floorboards. Were they all threads in the same rotten tapestry? The same hunger that lived in stillness? Lester found me sitting on the front desk, shaking. He didn't ask what I'd seen, just sighed, a sound like dry leaves crumbling. "Eleanor tried to fight them," he rasped, "tried to seal the mirrors. But glass isn't a wall, it's a doorway, and doorways have two sides." He crouched beside me, his breath sour with decay. "You think you're the first to run? They always run, until they realize the only way out is through." "Through what?" "Through the reflection." He tapped his chest. "They take what you carry, the pain, the guilt, the things that make you heavy. They feed on it. And when you're empty, you stay, like Daniel, like all the others." He stood up, brushing dust from his knees. "Finish your shift, or don't. It doesn't matter. The mirrors choose who stays." Dawn was hours away. I barricaded myself in the staff room, a closet-sized space behind the desk with a cot and a hot plate. No mirrors. I covered the single window with a blanket. Sat on the cot with my back to the door, listening to the silence. It wasn't quiet. It was waiting. At 4:47 a.m., the silence broke. A soft tap, tap, tap on the door, like fingernails. "Go away," I whispered. The tapping stopped. Then a child's voice, muffled but clear. "I brought you a story." I didn't move, didn't breathe. A piece of paper slid under the door. I picked it up with trembling hands. It was a crayon drawing. A stick-figure boy and a stick-figure man in a boat on a scribbled black lake. The words at the top, in wobbly letters, "Daddy and Daniel, the boat that doesn't sink." Beneath it, in the same handwriting as the ledger, he promised he'd rid to me. He lied. Memories flooded me, memories I'd buried for 20 years. My father's boat on the Cumberland, me, age 7, begging him to take me fishing. His laugh. Next time, Jamie, promise. The next time never came. He left that night, left us, left Mom to drown in vodka and tears, while I learned to be the adult at 10 years old. I'd buried the anger, buried the promise he broke, buried the little boy who still waited on that dock. The doorknob rattled. I threw the drawing into the corner. "I'm not your daddy," I shouted. "I never promised you anything." Silence. Then slowly the door handle turned, not by a hand, by itself. The lock clicked open. I backed into the corner as the door swung inward. Daniel stood there, not dripping, not bloated, just a boy in a dry blue baseball cap holding the teddy bear. His eyes were clear, sad. "You carry him," he whispered. "The boy on the dock, the one who waits, he's cold, like me." He pointed to my chest. "The stillness feels him. It's hungry." I sank to my knees. Tears streamed down my face. "I couldn't save her," I choked out. The words came unbidden, raw. My mom, after he left, she walked into the river one winter. I was 12. I should have stopped her. I should have been stronger. Daniel nodded. The river took her, but it couldn't keep her guilt. The stillness took it, like it took my daddy's broken promise. He held out the teddy bear. "Sit with me, in the chair, in room 713. The story won't end until you tell it." He led me through the empty lobby. The mirrors showed only us now. No distorted reflections, no shifting shadows. Just a broken man and a drowned boy walking hand in hand toward the stairs. Room 713's steel plate was gone. The door stood open. Inside, the room was intact. Moonlight streamed through the window, showing not Nashville, but the black expanse of the Cumberland River on a winter night. Ice crusted the edges. On the bed sat an armchair. Facing the window, my mother's favorite chair from our old house, the one she'd rocked me to sleep in before the vodka won. On the seat cushion lay a single item. My father's old fishing hat, stained with river water. Daniel climbed onto the chair, patted the space beside him. "He's waiting too," he said softly. "Your daddy, in the water. He carries the promise he broke." I sat down. The chair was warm. The floral upholstery felt like home. Outside the window, the river cleared. My mother floated there, not bloated, not broken, but as I remembered her before the sadness. Bright eyes, singing off-key to the radio. She pressed a palm against the glass. Her mouth moved. No sound came through, but I knew the words she'd whispered the night she left. "I'm sorry I wasn't stronger for you." Behind her, in the dark water, a figure emerged. My father, younger, sober, his face ravaged with regret. He held out a hand, not to me, to the boy on the dock, the 7-year-old me who still waited with a fishing rod and a heart full of hope. Daniel placed the teddy bear in my lap. It was warm, real. "Read the story," he whispered. I looked at the crayon drawing in my hand, the boat, the figures, the words, and I read, my voice steady, for the first time in decades. Once there was a boy named Daniel, and his daddy promised to take him fishing in a boat that didn't sink. But the river was hungry, and promises are heavy, so the stillness took them both, and now they wait for someone to remember, for someone to finish the story. The teddy bear emptied itself of river water. The fishing hat on the chair dried. My mother's reflection smiled, a real smile, crinkling the corners of her eyes. My father nodded. The little boy on the dock lowered his fishing rod. Let it go. Daniel took my hand. His skin was no longer cold, just small, human. Good, he whispered. Now you remember. Now you can stay. He led me to the window. The glass rippled like water. I stepped through. The river was warm, silent. The others made room in their circle, my mother, my father, the boy from the dock. Sarah Miller floated nearby, humming, "Row, row, row your boat." Eleanor Voss sat on the silt, brushing her hair. Mildred. Calloway held out a teacup filled with starlight. Above us, the surface shimmered. Through it, I saw the Seelbach lobby. The armchair in room 7113 sat empty, facing the window. The ledger book lay open on the front desk. The final entry read, Jamie Russo, room 7113, story completed, vacancy filled. Downstairs, the morning porter found the ledger. No record of a night clerk named Jamie Russo. But at the Obsidian Tower, the ancient elevator operator placed a fresh brass key on the service elevator floor. It was warm. At the bellwether, Doris wrote a new log entry. Room 1314. Guest, the porter from Nashville. Order, hot chocolate with extra marshmallows. Notes, tray returned empty. Marshmallows replaced with river stones. And in the hallway of the Seelbach Hotel, every mirror, sealed rooms, boarded-up floors, the grand staircase, showed the same scene. A boy in a blue baseball cap, sitting in an armchair, facing the window, holding a teddy bear, waiting for the next story to begin. And with that, this story comes to an end. Let's move on to the next one. The lighthouse that shouldn't have power keeps signaling one word. They decommissioned Point Vallejo Light in 1998, officially due to coastal erosion and structural instability. Unofficially, because no keeper would stay longer than 3 weeks. Not after the incident, not after the signals began. I knew the reports. I'd read the declassified Coast Guard logs, the psychiatric evaluations of the last 6 keepers, the frantic redacted transmissions from the final night. Repeat, no generator active, no grid connection, batteries disconnected per protocol, yet beacon rotates, a signal persists. Morse sequence unchanged. 3 dots, 3 dashes, 3 dots, but not SOS. It's spelling stay, over and over. Voice on VHF, not human, wet, layered, says stay. Between pulses, she's on the rocks again, singing. She always sings when she's hungry. God, the light. It's not white anymore. It's green. They dynamited the causeway in 2001, severing the island from the mainland, left the tower standing, a rusted sentinel on a half-acre of crumbling basalt, waves gnawing at its foundations twice a day. GPS coordinates scrubbed from charts. Airlifts banned within 5 nautical miles. A hazard to navigation buoy, painted black and yellow, labeled VO7, bobbed 300 yards offshore, its solar-powered strobe winking like a nervous eye. I went anyway, not for ghosts, for my sister. Mara vanished on August 12, 2007, exactly 10 years after the last keeper, Daniel Henderson, walked into the sea mid-transmission, still whispering, "Stay, stay, stay," into his dead mic. She'd taken a kayak out from Blackwater Cove at dusk, chasing bioluminescent plankton. Her paddle washed ashore the next morning, her life jacket draped over the buoy VO7, zipper pulled open, interior lined with dried juniper berries. The Coast Guard called it misadventure. I called it a recall, because the night she disappeared, the lighthouse, cold, dark, disconnected for 9 years, had blazed to life, rotating, pulsing, spelling one word in Morse over and over for 47 minutes straight. S-T-A-Y. I chartered a boat, not a fisherman, not a smuggler, a man named Reyes, who'd serviced the Light in the 80s before the incident. He met me at the cove an hour before dawn, his face a road map of scars and salt, eyes the color of storm clouds. "You sure, senor?" he'd rasped, handing me a flare gun, a coil of nylon rope, a sealed jar of coarse sea salt. The Light doesn't call strangers. It calls the ode. I didn't ask what he meant. We motored out in silence. The sea was flat, glassy, unnaturally still, no gulls, no wind, just the drone of the outboard, and beneath it a low subsonic thrum vibrating up through the hull. Reyes killed the engine 500 yards from VO7. "Current shifts. Here," he said, voice tight, like something's breathing. He handed me the rope. "Tie it to the cleat, not the railing, the cleat. If you feel it pull, don't fight. Let it take the slack. But don't let go, not ever." I nodded. He tossed me a waterproof satchel. Inside, a Geiger counter, a needle pinned left and cold, an EMF meter, 0.0 UT, a digital recorder, and a single sheet of paper. Hand-drawn, a map of Point Vallejo, not the official blueprints. This one showed the tower, but also a second structure hidden beneath the rock, labeled in shaky script, "The Chamber," "The Chain," "The Singer," at the bottom, words, "She doesn't want you to leave. She wants you to stay. She wants you to sing." I swam the last 200 yards. The water wasn't cold, warm, like blood, and thick, resistant, like swimming through syrup. The rope unspooled behind me, tight, though I hadn't pulled, as if something on the island was reeling me in. I dragged myself onto the rocks, not shale. Bone, fused vertebrae, rib cages, skulls, smoothed by centuries of tide, forming a grotesque, uneven shore. The salt jar in my satchel rattled. The tower loomed ahead, 60 feet of whitewashed brick, peeling paint revealing rust beneath, like scabs. The lantern room, glass intact, miraculously, gleamed dully. No light, not yet. I climbed the exterior stairs, rusted iron, groaning underfoot, not with decay, with strain, like tendons pulled taut. The keeper's door hung open. Inside, dust, not settled, drifting in slow, deliberate spirals. The air smelled of ozone, brine, and beneath it, the sweet rot stench of kelp left to ferment in the sun. I moved to the base of the tower. The spiral staircase wound upward, steps worn concave by generations of boots. Halfway up, I stopped. The EMF meter in my pocket vibrated, not spiking, pulsing. In time with the thrum from the sea, 0.7 hertz, the frequency of a resting human heart. I climbed. The lantern room door was unlocked. I pushed it open. The beacon was there. A massive, first-order Fresnel lens, prisms gleaming, brass housing tarnished green. Dead, no bulb, no wiring, just hollow sockets, and yet the lens was warm, humming, vibrating. I stepped closer. The brass wasn't tarnished. It was engraved, not with maker's marks, with names, hundreds of them, carved deep. Eleanor Pratt, Jason Taylor, Miranda Lopez, Devin Harris, Sarah Wilkins, Kevin Chen, Talia Nguyen, Ben Carter, Daniel Henderson, Mara Reed. My sister's name, fresh. The can still oozing a viscous amber fluid that smelled of apples and iron. I touched it. The fluid clung, warm, alive. The Geiger counter shrieked, not radiation. Sound, a high-pitched whine rising to a scream. I dropped it. The lens hummed louder. The amber fluid on my finger pulsed. Green light bloomed within the prisms, not electric. Bioluminescent, like deep-sea jellyfish. The beacon began to rotate, slowly, silently, no motor, no gears, just the lens turning smooth as breath, and the light, it wasn't white. Green, pulsing, casting long, grasping shadows across the lantern room. I pulled out the recorder, pressed play, static. Then a voice, not Mara's, not human, wet, layered, a chorus of drowning things. Stay, stay, stay. Morse code flashed across the recorder's tiny screen, not dots and dashes. Words. Stia Hawaii, Stia Hawaii, Stia Hawaii. I looked out the window. The sea was gone, not vanished, changed. The water had receded, leaving the bone shore exposed for half a mile, and at the center of the exposed basin, a maw, vast. Jaw bones of petrified wood and iron, teeth, shattered concrete, twisted rebar, the hulls of ships. Tongue, a churnic mass of kelp, chains, and pale, reaching limbs, all glowing green, all singing, the same word, over and over. Stay. The rope around my waist jerked, not from the boat, from below. I stumbled to the tower's interior hatch, the one leading down to the keeper's quarters, the storage rooms, the foundation. It was open. A ladder descended into darkness, not black. Green, pulsing like the beacon. I climbed down. The air grew warmer, thicker, the smell of apples overpowering now. The ladder ended in a stone chamber, not on the island's bedrock. Beneath it, a cavern. Walls lined with fused bone, ceiling hung with chains thick as wrists, blackened with age, dangling empty manacles. In the center, a well, not stone. Teeth, hundreds of them, fused into a circular rim, glowing green. From its depths, the thrum, louder, deeper, and the singing, clearer. Mara's voice, faint, terrified. Eli, don't look down. Don't listen. The light isn't for ships. It's for us. The ones who fell, the ones who jumped, the ones who were called. I stepped to the well's edge. The amber fluid on my finger burned. The names on the beacon. My name was there now, freshly carved, oozing fluid, pulled, not in my mind, in my bones. I looked down. The well wasn't deep. 10 feet. At the bottom, water, not seawater. Clear, reflecting the green light from above, and in the reflection, not my face, Mara's, 7 years old, freckles, russet hair, smiling. You came back, her reflection whispered. Just like you promised, pinkies swear. If one of us falls, the other jumps too. I remembered, not the kayak, the oath. Mara and I on the rocks below Holloway Playground. She slipped, fell into the creek. I jumped in after her. But the creek wasn't shallow, it deepened. The rocks weren't stone, they were teeth. And as we sank, green light flaring around us, a voice whispered, stay. We didn't drown. We were recruited. Mara, junior singer, me, beacon tender. Our first task, call the others back. The PA crackled in my mind, not the mall's voice. The lighthouses, calm, polished, retail perfect. Good evening, travelers. Point Vallejo Light is pleased to announce a special signal, tonight only. In the chamber, room B7, everything is 50% off. Brothers, sisters, memories, oaths, all must go. Remember, loyalty is rewarded. The well water rippled, not from wind, from below. A hand rose, small, pale, webbed fingers reaching. Mara's hand. Take it, Eli. The reflection whispered. Hold on tight. The chain is waiting. The swing is ready. We need 3 now. The rope around my waist tightened. not pulling me up. Down toward the well, the amber fluid on my finger spread. Up my arm, green light pulsed beneath my skin. The names on the beacon flared. Elias. Read. Beacon tender. Pending. I looked at the recorder. The Morse had changed. Not S-T-A-Y. S-T-A-Y, S-T-A-Y, S-T-A-Y. A single, unbroken word. A command. The hand in the well grasped the rim. Mara pulled herself up. Not 7, not drowned. Changed. Skin pale, translucent. Hair floating in the green light. Eyes full of black voids. Mouth open. Singing the same word. The rope snapped taut. Reyes was pulling hard. I took a step back. Mara smiled. Her teeth were small, sharp, perfect. "You can't leave, Elias," she sang. "The light needs you. The chain needs you. The song needs you. You swore, you jumped, you're ours." The well water surged, not spilling, rising, green, thick, carrying shapes, hands, heads, bodies, all singing, all reaching. The rope burned into my waist. Reyes was screaming my name, real name, full name, into the VHF, but the Lighthouse voice drowned it out. Calm, polished, final. Final call for Elias Reed. "Your position is ready. Proceed to the chamber. Your sister is waiting. She's been very patient." I looked at Mara, at the well, at the rope, and I understood. The light doesn't warn ships. It harvests them. It gathers the lost, the lonely, the ones who broke their oaths, and it holds them in the chain, in the song, in the green-lit dark. The rope went slack. Reyes had cut it. I was free. I could run, but the amber fluid on my arm pulsed. My bones ached. The beacon above hummed my name. Elias Reed. The well water rose to the rim. Mara held out her hand. "Come on, Daddy," she whispered, the voice from the playground, the mall, the cabin. "The swing needs 3, and the light. The light needs a keeper." I took her hand, not cold, preserved. The green light flared, the singing swelled, the well opened wider, and as I stepped in, I finally understood. The most terrifying thing about Point Vallejo light isn't the signal. It's the moment you realize you're the next keeper. And the word isn't a warning. It's a welcome, stay, because the light never goes out. It just cycles. For the next brother, the next oath, the next fall, waiting to be claimed in the green-lit dark, where loyalty is always rewarded, and all sales are final, and the song never ends. It just waits for you to finally sing along. That's where this story ends. Let's continue with the next. Beneath the rotting floorboards of Camp Everstill, I didn't believe in ghosts, not really. I believed in trauma, in memory, in the way old places hold on to pain like dampness in wood. But I didn't believe in spirits that lingered, watching, waiting, least of all in a place as forgotten as Camp Everstill. It was supposed to be temporary, just a summer job, groundskeeper, caretaker, whatever you wanted to call it, for a camp that hadn't seen children since the late 80s. The pay was laughable, but the rent was free. A small cabin near the edge of Blackwater Lake, nestled between pines so dense they choked out the sun by mid-afternoon. I needed somewhere quiet to disappear for a while, somewhere without Wi-Fi, without neighbors, without the constant hum of a city that never let me forget what I'd done. The listing was posted on a regional job board under seasonal maintenance remote location. No photos, just coordinates and a phone number. The voice on the other end was elderly, female, with a smoker's rasp and zero patience. "You know how to use an axe?" she asked. "Yeah," I lied. "Good. Cabin's got a wood stove. Roof leaks in the east corner. Floor's soft in the back room. Don't step there unless you want to meet God early." She hung up before I could ask about the camp's history. I arrived at dusk. The drive-in was a nightmare. Narrow dirt roads swallowed by overgrowth, branches scraping the sides of my truck like skeletal fingers. When I finally broke through the tree line, Camp Everstill sprawled before me like a corpse half buried in moss. Dozens of cabins, most collapsed or leaning drunkenly into the earth. A mess hall with shattered windows, a boathouse sagging into the lake. And beyond it all, the water, still, black, reflecting nothing but the bruised sky. My cabin, Cabin 7, was one of the few still standing upright. It smelled of wet rot and mouse droppings when I pushed open the door. Inside, a rusted wood stove, a cot with a mildewed mattress, a table with 2 chairs, and a single oil lamp hanging from a hook in the ceiling. The floorboards groaned under my weight, especially toward the back, where the woman had warned me not to step. One plank near the far wall was visibly sunken, its edges splintered and dark with moisture. I dropped my duffel bag by the door and lit the lamp. Shadows leapt across the walls, stretching long and thin like grasping hands. Outside, the wind picked up, whispering through the pines. It sounded almost like voices. That first night, I slept fitfully. Every creak of the cabin, every rustle in the underbrush, jolted me awake. Around 2 a.m., I heard something new, a low, rhythmic thumping from beneath the floor, like someone tapping a stick against wood. Steady, patient. I sat up, heart pounding, and held my breath. The sound stopped. Morning brought relief. Sunlight filtered weakly through the trees, painting stripes across the dusty floor. I spent the day clearing brush around the main lodge, chopping deadfall for the stove, trying to ignore the uneasy feeling that I was being watched. The lake never rippled, not once. Even when the wind gusted hard enough to rattle the shutters, the surface remained glassy, smooth, unnaturally calm. That's when I found the journal. Tucked beneath a loose floorboard near the stove, clearly pried up before, was a water-stained notebook bound in leather. The pages were brittle, ink faded to brown, but legible. It belonged to someone named Eleanor Voss, a camp counselor in the summer of 1987. June 14th. Kids are restless. Too much rain? They keep talking about the girl in the lake. Said they saw her last night during flashlight tag. Pale face just below the surface, eyes wide open. Told them it was just a log or a fish. But little Timmy won't stop crying. Says she whispered his name. June 22nd. Something's wrong with Cabin 7, the floor in the back room. It's warm, even when the rest of the cabin is freezing. And there's a smell, sweet, like rotting fruit. Checked underneath today, nothing but mud and roots. But the ground feels hollow. July 3rd. They're digging again, in the woods behind the boathouse. I didn't tell anyone, but I followed them last night. 4 of the older boys, led by Danny Reeves. They had shovels. Said they were looking for treasure. But they weren't laughing, they were scared. When I called out, they ran. Left the hole half dug. I went closer. There was something at the bottom, wrapped in burlap. I didn't touch it. July 10th. Eleanor's handwriting grew jagged, frantic. They took her. The girl from Cabin 3, Sarah Miller, vanished during the storm last night. Search party found her shoe by the dock. Nothing else. Sheriff says she drowned. But I saw Danny this morning. He had mud on his boots, and he wouldn't look me in the eye. July 12th, I went to the sheriff, showed him the hole in the woods. He laughed, said kids dig holes all the time. But I know what I saw. That burlap wasn't empty. July 15th, last entry. They're watching me now, from the trees, from the lake, even from inside the cabin. I hear scratching under the floor at night. Not mice. Something bigger, something that breathes. I'm leaving tomorrow. I can't stay here. If you find this, don't trust the silence, don't trust the stillness. Camp Everstill isn't empty. It's full of what they buried and what they didn't bury deep enough. I close the journal slowly, my hands trembling. 1987, 39 years ago. Sarah Miller, Danny Reeves, names I'd never heard before, yet they clung to me like cobwebs. That night, I nailed a plank over the soft spot in the floor, just in case. The knocking started at midnight. Not tapping, not scratching. Full, heavy knocks, like a fist pounding from below. Boom, boom, boom. Each one shook. The cot. I grabbed the axe I'd been using to split wood and stood over the patched floorboards, sweat slick on my palms. "Who's there?" My voice cracked. Silence. Then a slow, wet drag across the underside of the floor, like something dragging itself through mud. It circled the cabin, stopping directly beneath my feet. I didn't sleep. By dawn, I was exhausted, paranoid, jumping at shadows. I decided to investigate the woods behind the boathouse. Armed with the axe and a flashlight, I pushed through ferns and brambles until I found it, a shallow depression, overgrown but unmistakable. The hole Eleanor mentioned. I dug. Just a few inches down, my shovel hit something soft. Fabric. Burlap. Rotted but intact. My stomach turned. I peeled it back with the tip of the axe. Bones. Small. Human. A child's femur. A fragment of a skull, and tangled in the remains. A faded blue hair ribbon, identical to the one described in local news archives I looked up on my phone the night before. Sarah Miller's favorite color was blue. I stumbled back, bile rises in my throat. I needed to call the police. But my phone had no signal. Never had since I arrived. I ran back to the cabin, planning to drive into town, but my truck wouldn't start. The battery was dead, though it had been fine yesterday. The fuel line was clogged with something thick and black like tar. Trapped. That evening, the lake began to ripple, not from wind, from something moving beneath the surface. Slow, deliberate circles spreading outward from the center. I watched from the porch, axe in hand, as the ripples grew closer to shore, closer to the dock. Then a shape emerged, pale, bloated, hair floating like seaweed, a face, childlike, distorted by decades underwater, turned toward me, eyes milky white, mouth open in a silent scream. I slammed the cabin door, locked it, shoved the table against it. My breath came in ragged gasps. Outside, the ripples stopped. Silence returned. But the knocking beneath the floor began again. Louder, faster. Boom, 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 boom. And then a voice, gurgling, wet, as if spoken through a throat full of lake water. "Let me in." I recognized it from the journal. "Sarah Miller." "No," I whispered. "You're not real. You're dead." "I'm cold," the voice sobbed. "So cold. Let me warm up." The floorboard I'd nailed down began to lift. Splinters popped. Nails screeched as they tore free. From the widening gap, a hand emerged. Gray, webbed with algae, fingers too long, nails blackened and sharp. It clawed at the air, reaching for me. I swung the axe. It bit deep into the wrist. Black fluid oozed out, steaming as it hit the floorboards. The hand jerked back with a shriek that wasn't human. It was the sound of drowning, of suffocation, of a child trapped in darkness for 39 years. Silence fell. I collapsed against the wall, shaking, covered in sweat and that foul-smelling fluid. Dawn came. The hand was gone. The floorboard lay flat again, as if nothing had happened. But I knew better. I spent the next 3 days trying to escape. Walked 5 miles through the woods only to circle back to the lake. Tried signaling planes with a mirror. None flew overhead. The camp was sealed off, as if the forest itself refused to let me leave. On the 4th night, I heard singing, a child's voice, clear and sweet, drifting from the lake. Row, row, row your boat. I peered through the window. Dozens of figures stood waist-deep in the water, pale, bloated, their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Children, all of them, holding hands, swaying gently. And at the center, Sarah Miller, pointing toward my cabin. They knew I was here. That's when I understood. Camp Everstill wasn't haunted by one ghost. It was a graveyard, a dumping ground. Not just Sarah, but others, kids who vanished. During storms, during hikes, during accidents, the camp covered up. And whatever was beneath my floor, it wasn't just Sarah. It was the thing that pulled them under, the thing that lived in the hollow beneath the cabin, the thing that fed on silence and stillness. I tried burning the cabin down, set fire to the mattress, but the flames died instantly, as if smothered by invisible hands. Now I write this by lamplight, listening to the floor breathe beneath me. The knocking has stopped, but the dragon hasn't. It's closer now, right under my chair. I can feel the heat rising through the boards, that same warmth Eleanor described, sweet rot, damp earth, hunger. They don't want me to leave. They want me to join them, to become part of the stillness, to sink into the hollow beneath the rotting floorboards of Camp Everstill and never move again. And this story ends here. The next one begins now. I woke up in a hospital. The staff won't tell me what year it is. The first sensation was the hum, a low, soft, persistent thrum that seemed to vibrate not just in my ears, but in the very marrow of my bones. It was the sound of a perfectly functioning, utterly sterile machine. The second sensation was the smell, antiseptic, clean to the point of being aggressive, a scent so devoid of organic life it felt like the opposite of breathing. My eyes opened. The world was a uniform, shadowless, milky white. The ceiling, the walls, the thin synthetic blanket covering me, all the same shade of clinical non-color. My name is Mark Thorne. I knew this with a sudden crystalline certainty. I was 34 years old. I was an architect. I was engaged to a woman named Anna, a woman whose laugh sounded like wind chimes and whose hair smelled of lavender and sunshine, and I had been in a car accident. The memory came back in a jagged, violent flash, the screech of tires on wet asphalt, the blinding glare of headlights where they shouldn't be, the sickening concussive crunch of metal, and Anna's hand, suddenly weightless in my own. Panic, cold and sharp, clawed its way up my throat. I tried to sit up, but my body refused to obey. It felt like a borrowed suit, heavy and disconnected. A soft, pleasant chime sounded somewhere in the room, and a woman appeared at my bedside. She was dressed in the same seamless white as the room, her features calm and symmetrical, her smile gentle but utterly unreadable. A name tag on her chest read, Elara, Cognitive Support. "Welcome back, Mark," she said, her voice as smooth and placid as a still lake. "It's good to see you awake. Please, do not be alarmed. You are safe." "Anna," I rasped, my throat feeling like sandpaper. "My fiancée. Was she—" Elara's smile didn't waver. "All will be made clear in time. For now, your focus must be on recovery. Your body has been dormant for a significant period. We must reestablish your baseline functions." Her words were like pillows, soft and designed to smother any hard, sharp questions. But one question pushed its way through the fog of my confusion. It felt like the most important question in the world, the anchor I needed to tether myself to reality. "How long?" I asked. "How long have I been out?" She took a small silver device from her pocket and ran it over my chest. A soft, green light pulsed from it. "Your vital signs are stabilizing nicely. That's a very positive indicator." "You didn't answer my question," I said, a flicker of irritation cutting through my weakness. "The concept of how long is relative, Mark," she said, her placid expression unwavering. "Temporal awareness can be disorienting after a significant trauma. Our priority is your cognitive and physiological well-being. We will address all your questions during your scheduled sessions." She tapped a small, almost invisible panel on the wall, and a tray slid out, holding a small bowl of a thick beige paste. "Your nutrient intake is critical at this stage. Please consume this. It has everything your body needs." I stared at the paste, then back at her. Her refusal to answer was so deliberate, so unnatural. It wasn't that she didn't know, it was that she wouldn't say. A new, colder fear began to snake its way around the hot core of my grief for Anna. "What year is it?" I asked, the words stark and loud in the quiet room. Elara's smile finally faltered, just for a fraction of a second. A tiny micro-expression of something. Annoyance? Pity? It was gone as quickly as it came. "That is not a productive question at this stage of your recovery, Mark. We find that focusing on the present moment yields the best results. Now, please, your nutrients." She left the room as silently as she had entered. I was alone with the humming, the antiseptic smell, the beige paste, and a profound, terrifying sense of dislocation. It was the first day of my new life, a life in which the simple act of asking for the date was considered an unproductive question. The days that followed blurred into a monotonous, disorienting routine, a life lived in a white box. My physical strength returned with an almost unnatural speed. The nutrient paste, which tasted of nothing at all, seemed to repair my atrophied muscles at a cellular level. A man named Coyle, a physical therapist with the same calm, detached demeanor as Elara, would guide me through exercises that felt both alien and familiar. My body remembered how to move, but it was a distant, echoic memory. My real work, they told me, was in the cognitive sessions with Elara. We would sit in 2 white chairs in my white room, and she would ask me questions. She'd show me images on a tablet, a tree, a house, a dog, and ask me to identify them. At first, it felt like a test for a toddler, but the questions grew more complex, more personal. "Tell me about your childhood home, Mark," she'd say, her pen poised over a data pad. "It was a 2-story colonial on Maple Street," I'd begin. "A big oak tree in the front yard with a tire swing." She would listen patiently, and then she would gently correct me. "Our records indicate it was a single-story ranch house on Elm Avenue. The tree was a sycamore. The memory of a tire swing is a common confabulation. a memory echo from a piece of media you likely consumed. It was maddening. Every detail I provided, every memory I held dear, was met with a calm, clinical refutation. They had a file on me, a complete and total record of the life of Mark Thorne. And it was all wrong. My father was a carpenter, not an accountant. My first pet was a cat named Mittens, not a goldfish named Bubbles. Anna and I met in a coffee shop during a rainstorm, not through a university-sponsored social mixer. The trauma of your accident was significant, Mark, Elara explained, her voice dripping with synthetic sympathy. It has created inconsistencies in your neural pathways. Think of your memory as a corrupted file. We are simply helping you restore the original uncorrupted data. We are helping you find yourself again. They were trying to gaslight me into a different life. But why? The more I clung to my own memories, the more they increased the frequency of the sessions. The more they insisted my past was a fiction. My grief for Anna was the one thing I held on to with a white-knuckled grip. It was my proof. My pain was real. Our love was real. They wanted to take that away, too. They called it emotional trauma, an anomaly to be corrected. The hospital, I had no other word for it, was a labyrinth of identical white corridors. There were no windows, not a single one. There was no way to see the sun, the sky, the outside world. There was no way to know if it was day or night. The soft, ambient light in the ceiling never changed. The staff, there were perhaps a dozen of them that I saw, moved with a silent, synchronized efficiency. They all wore the same white uniforms, the same placid smiles. They were like a hive of well-meaning, soulless insects. I never saw another patient. My repeated questions about this were met with the same frustratingly vague responses about individualized recovery protocols. The need to know the year became an obsession, a gnawing, desperate hunger. It was the key. It was the one piece of information that would unlock this whole nightmare. I tried every tactic I could think of. I tried pleading. I tried demanding. I tried feigning a breakdown. Nothing worked. They would simply sedate me with a small, painless injection, and I would wake up in my bed, the lost hours, a terrifying blank space in my mind. The first crack in their perfect white wall came in the form of a child's drawing. I had been permitted a recreational period in a room that was slightly larger than my own, filled with simple geometric objects that were meant to be stimulating. A maintenance panel in the wall was slightly ajar. My curiosity, the one part of me they hadn't managed to sedate, took over. I glanced at the camera in a corner, then quickly pried the panel open. Inside was a tangle of fiber optic cables, and tucked away in a corner, a folded piece of paper. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. It was a drawing done in the clumsy, earnest style of a young child. It depicted a family of stick figures standing under a sky that was a violent, angry shade of orange-red, cracked with jagged black lines. Beneath the drawing, in shaky block letters, was a single phrase, "Before the broken sky." The broken sky. The phrase echoed in my mind, resonating with a deep, primal sense of dread. I tucked the drawing into the waistband of my uniform, my heart pounding. It was a piece of the puzzle. It was proof that something had happened, something terrible, something that they were trying to erase. That night, I faked taking my mandatory sedative. I palmed a small dissolvable tablet and hid it under my tongue until the orderly left. For the first time, I was awake when I was supposed to be asleep. The humming of the facility seemed louder in the artificial night. I slid out of bed and crept to my door. I had no plan, just a desperate need to see something other than the four white walls of my room. The corridor was empty, bathed in the same eternal soft light. I began to walk, my bare feet silent on a cool, seamless floor. I didn't know what I was looking for. A window, a clock, an exit. A soft, scraping sound from a room down the hall made me freeze. I pressed myself against the wall, my breath held tight in my chest. The door was slightly ajar. I peered through the crack. Inside, an old man was on his hands and knees, trying to pry up a floor tile with a spoon he must have stolen from a meal tray. He was gaunt and wild-eyed, his white hair a chaotic halo around his head. He saw me. His eyes widened in terror, and he scrambled back, holding the spoon like a weapon. "Shh," I whispered, holding up my hands. "I'm not one of them." He watched me for a long moment, his chest heaving. Then he seemed to make a decision. "You're new," he rasped, his voice dry and cracked. "The architect. I heard them talking." "My name is Mark," I said. "What is this place?" "This place is a lie," he said, his eyes darting toward the door. "They're trying to correct you, aren't they? Trying to make you forget. Don't let them. The memories are all we have left of what it was like. Before." "Before what?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Before the broken sky." The old man's face went slack with shock. "Where did you hear that?" I showed him the drawing. He stared at it, a single tear tracing a path through the grime on his cheek. "So, you're a digger," he said with a grim, humorless smile. "Like me. They call me Elias. They say I have advanced memory corruption. They say I'm a lost cause." "Elias," I said, "what year is it?" He let out a dry, rattling laugh. "That's the one thing you can't ask. The one thing they protect above all else. Because the number is so big it would break your mind. Because it would prove that everything you were, everyone you knew, is dust." "What happened?" I pleaded. "The accident." "There was no accident," Elias said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Not for most of us. We were chosen. The chrysalis protocol. They put us to sleep, the ones with the skills they thought they'd need to rebuild. Architects, doctors, engineers. We were supposed to be the seed of the new world. But something went wrong. The great silence, they call it. The world outside. It died, and we just kept sleeping. For a long, long time." His words were the ravings of a madman, but they resonated with a terrifying intuitive truth. This place wasn't a hospital. It was a bunker, a tomb, and we were the sleeping inhabitants being woken up one by one. "The ones running this place?" I asked. "Who are they?" "The Watchers," he said, his eyes wide. "The descendants of the original staff. They were born here, in the white. They've never seen the sun. They've never felt the rain. The world before is a myth to them, a dangerous, corrupted file, and we are the last living copies of that file. They're trying to wipe us clean, to make us like them before they integrate us." A chime sounded down the hall. Elias scrambled to his feet, his face a mask of terror. "You have to go. They're coming." He pressed the spoon into my hand. "Keep digging, architect," he whispered. "Don't let them win." I fled back to my room, my mind a maelstrom of horrifying new realities. I was a relic, an artifact from a dead world. My memories weren't corrupted. They were history, and the staff of this hospital were book burners trying to erase it. The fight for my past was no longer just a fight for my sanity. It was a fight for the memory of the entire human race. My relationship with my captors changed. I became a model patient. I pretended to accept their corrections. I parroted back the fabricated details of my new life. I ate the paste. I did the exercises. I smiled the same placid, empty smile as them. But beneath the surface, I was a saboteur. I was mapping the corridors in my mind, noting the patrol patterns of the orderlies, looking for a weakness in their perfect white prison. Elias and I began to communicate in secret. We would leave messages for each other behind the loose maintenance panels using a simple code we'd devised. He told me more about the facility, which he called the Janus Cradle. He told me there were different levels. We were in the integration wing. Below us was the hibernation bay, where hundreds, maybe thousands more were still sleeping. Above us was command, where the watchers lived, and somewhere there was an exit, a door to the outside world. Our goal was simple and insane. We had to get out. We had to see the broken sky for ourselves. Elias had a plan. He had been here for years and had managed to steal a low-level key card from a careless orderly. It wouldn't get us to command, but it might get us into the maintenance tunnels that honeycombed the facility. Our chance came during a system-wide diagnostic, a monthly event where the surveillance system was briefly rebooted, leaving small gaps in the camera coverage. The escape was a heart-stopping, terrifying blur. Under the cover of the reboot, we slipped out of our rooms and met in a deserted corridor. Elias swiped the card, and a nearly invisible seam in the wall hissed open, revealing a dark, narrow shaft. We plunged into it, the door hissing shut behind us, sealing us in the dusty, humming darkness of the cradle's guts. The tunnels were a different world. They were dark, cramped, and filled with the ghosts of old technology. Thick bundles of cables coated in a thick layer of gray dust snaked along the walls. Here and there, I saw logos and brand names that were achingly familiar, relics from my own time: General Electric, IBM, Panasonic. They were like fossils from a prehistoric age. We were moving through the skeleton of a dead world. We found a maintenance nexus, a small chamber where several tunnels converged. In the center was a dusty computer terminal, an ancient-looking desktop computer from the early 21st century. It was dead, of course, but beside it, on a shelf, was a stack of leather-bound logbooks. We opened the first one. The entries were handwritten, the ink faded, but still legible. The date on the first page made my breath catch in my throat. October 23rd, 2026. My accident had been in August of 2026. The logbook was the journal of Dr. Eris Thorne, the original director of the Janus Cradle. Not a cold young man who was my doctor, but his ancestor, his namesake. I read his words, my horror growing with every page. He wrote of a world teetering on the brink of collapse, not from war, but from something far more insidious. A series of cascading ecological disasters, a runaway greenhouse effect that was melting the poles and turning the skies a permanent, hazy red. He wrote of the chrysalis protocol, a desperate last-ditch effort to preserve a select group of humanity's best and brightest, to put them to sleep until the earth could heal itself. October 29th, 2026. The great silence has begun. All external communications went dark this morning. We are on our own now. The sky is the color of rust. May God have mercy on the souls of those we left behind. May 12th, 2048. The first of the cradle-born generation has come of age. They have never known a blue sky. They look upon us, the sleepers and the original staff, with a mixture of awe and pity. They call our world the before times. July 3rd, 2091, I am the last of the originals. The others are gone. The cradle-born run this place now. They are good, pragmatic people, but they fear the past. They see the memories of the sleepers not as a history to be preserved, but as a sickness to be cured. They have begun what they call cognitive correction. They believe they are doing a kindness, sparing the newly awakened the grief of a world that is gone forever. I have tried to argue with them, but to them I'm just a sad old man clinging to ghosts. The last entry was dated a week later. The writing was shaky, almost illegible. They are wrong. Memory is not a sickness. It is the only thing that proves we were ever alive at all. I have hidden these logs. Maybe one day one of the sleepers will find them. Maybe one of them will be strong enough to remember for us all. I looked up from the book, my eyes stinging. 100 years. 200. The number didn't matter. Elias was right. The world I knew, the world of Anna, of Maple Street, of blue skies and rainstorms, was not just gone. It was ancient history. A noise from the tunnel behind us made us jump. The sound of footsteps. They knew we were gone. We had to move. We grabbed the logbooks and plunged deeper into the labyrinth. We were lost for what felt like days. We survived on the emergency nutrient packs we found in a forgotten storage closet. The Watchers were hunting us. We could hear their calm, dispassionate voices echoing through the tunnels, calling our names, assuring us that they only wanted to help. It was during our flight that we stumbled upon the nursery. It was a large circular room, filled with rows upon rows of cryogenic pods, far smaller than the ones in the hibernation bay. These were for children, but the most horrifying part was a large glass-walled observation room. Inside, a group of cradle-born children, no older than 5 or 6, were sitting at desks, watching a large screen. On the screen was a pastoral scene from the before times, a family having a picnic in a sunny green field. "Look, children," a soft, synthesized voice was saying, "this is a memory echo. It is a simulation of the corrupted data that the sleepers carry. See how bright the light is? It is unnatural. See how the people laugh? It is a symptom of emotional dysregulation. We must be grateful for the calm, for the balance that we have achieved." They weren't just erasing our memories. They were inoculating their own children against them, teaching them to fear the very concept of our world, to fear happiness, to fear the sun. Elias, his mind already fragile, couldn't take it. He let out a strangled, grief-stricken cry and collapsed, sobbing. The sound alerted our pursuers. They were on us in seconds. They dragged Elias away, his eyes locking with mine in a final, desperate plea. "Remember," his eyes said, "I managed to escape back into the maze of tunnels. I was alone again, hunted, with the weight of a dead world on my shoulders. I knew I couldn't stay in the tunnels forever. My only chance was to go up, to get to command, to find the door. Elias had managed to slip me his stolen key card before they took him. It was a desperate gamble, but I found a sealed access ladder that his card miraculously opened. It led straight up, into the heart of the beast. The command level was a stark contrast to the rest of the cradle. The walls were a dark, polished gray. The air was warmer. This was where the Watchers lived. I crept through the corridors, my heart in my throat. I saw their living quarters, as Spartan and minimalist as my own room. I saw their food synthesizers, their communal learning centers. It was a life of perfect, sterile, passionless order. I found my way to the central control room. It was a vast, circular chamber. The walls were a single panoramic screen, currently displaying the vital signs of the thousands of souls still sleeping in the hibernation bay. In the center of the room, a young man was sitting at a console. It was the man I knew as Dr. Eris. He wasn't in his white uniform. He was wearing a simple gray tunic. He didn't seem surprised to see me. "Mark Thorne," he said, his voice as calm as ever. "The architect. I must admit, you have been our most resilient subject." "Where is Elias?" I demanded, my voice raw. "He has been returned to hibernation," Aris said. "His memory file was too deeply corrupted. Perhaps in a few more generations our techniques will be advanced enough to help him. To cure him." "He wasn't sick," I snarled. "He was remembering a world of chaos, of pain, of uncontrolled emotions that led to its own destruction," Aris countered, his gaze unwavering. "We are offering you a gift, a second chance, a life of purpose, of balance. You can help us build the new world, but first you must let go of the old one." "My world had love," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "It had art. It had Anna." For the first time, I saw a flicker of something in Aris's eyes. It wasn't pity. It was a deep, almost academic curiosity. "Anna," he mused. "The primary emotional trauma, the core of the corruption. Her file is fascinating. The depth of the codependent pathology is unlike anything we have on record." He gestured to the main screen. The vital signs were replaced by a photograph. It was a picture of me and Anna on a beach, laughing, the sun in our hair. The sight of it was a physical blow. "What you call love, we call a destabilizing fixation," Eris said. "It is the very thing we have worked for centuries to eliminate. The world outside is stable now, healed, but it is a delicate, fragile piece. We cannot risk contaminating it with the diseases of the past, with grief, with rage, with love." "I want to see it," I said, my voice a whisper. "I want to see the sky." He looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Very well," he said. "You are resilient. Perhaps you are strong enough to see the truth and accept it. Perhaps then you will understand the kindness we are offering." He pressed a sequence of panels on his console. A section of the far wall began to retract, revealing a massive circular airlock door. "This is the main egress," Eris said. "It has not been opened in over 300 years. He led me towards it, my legs feeling like lead. I was about to see it, the broken sky, the world after the Great Silence. "What year is it, Eris?" I asked one last time. He paused, his hand on the final locking mechanism. "By your old calendar," he said, his voice devoid of all emotion. "The year is 2571, 445 years. The number was so vast, so meaningless, it didn't even register as a shock. It was just a sound." The great door hissed open. A strange, pale light, tinged with a faint violet hue, spilled into the room. A wind, cool and smelling of damp earth and strange alien blossoms, washed over me. I stepped forward, my heart pounding, and looked out upon the world of 2571. It wasn't a wasteland. It wasn't a desert. It was a garden, a strange, beautiful, and utterly alien garden. The sky wasn't broken. It was a soft, perpetual twilight of lavender and rose, a permanent global aurora caused by the altered composition of the atmosphere. The vegetation was lush and bizarre, forests of glowing phosphorescent fungi and trees with leaves of spun silver. In the distance, the ruins of an ancient city, my city, were almost completely consumed by this new, vibrant nature, the skeletal remains of skyscrapers draped in iridescent moss. And the people. There were people moving through the glowing forests. They were tall and slender, their skin almost translucent, their eyes large and dark. They were the cradle-born who had left generations ago to resettle the surface. They were beautiful, peaceful. They moved with a slow, graceful purpose, their faces calm and serene. They were the children of the Watchers, the end result of a program to engineer a new, balanced humanity. And I was a monster, a relic from the age of chaos, a carrier of the emotional plague. The hospital wasn't a prison to keep me in. It was a quarantine to protect them from me. Aris stood beside me. "This is what we have built," he said, his voice filled with a quiet, profound pride. "A world without pain, without grief, without the destructive passions that burned your world to the ground. You can be a part of this, Mark. All you have to do is let her go. Let Anna go." I looked out at the strange, beautiful, silent world. A world without pain, a world without Anna's laugh, a world where the memory of her was a disease. I thought of the logbook. Memory is not a sickness. It is the only thing that proves we were ever alive. I had turned to Aris. His face was a mask of calm expectation. He believed he had won. He believed that seeing this new, perfect world would make me surrender my broken, chaotic past. "No," I said, the word feeling like the first real thing I had said since I woke up. I didn't wait for his reaction. I turned and walked out of the airlock, down the ramp, and into the strange violet twilight of the new earth. I was a ghost, a man out of time, a walking museum of dead emotions. I was utterly, completely alone. But for the first time since I had opened my eyes in that white room, I was free. I didn't know where I was going or what I would do. I only knew that I would not forget. I would carry the memory of Anna, of our world, into this silent, peaceful future. I would be the sickness. I would be the chaos. I would be the ghost that haunted their perfect, passionless garden. I would remember for them all. That's where this story ends. Let's continue with the next. Every room had a mirror facing the door. I should have turned around when I saw the first mirror, right there in the lobby, mounted dead center on the far wall, reflecting the front doors like a silent sentinel. But desperation makes you ignore omens. My bank account had bled dry after Mom's funeral. The medical bills, the cremation costs, the quiet, crushing weight of being the last one left. When the sheriff's department handed me the keys to her condemned bungalow and said, 30 days to clear it out or it's ours, I didn't have 30 days. I had a duffel bag, a half-tank of gas, and a Craigslist ad screaming, "Room 75 WK, cash only, no questions." The address led me to the edge of Ravenswood, a town that smelled of wet asphalt and forgotten things. The building wasn't a hotel, not anymore. The Ravenswood Grand sign hung crooked over the entrance, the grand half torn away by wind or time, leaving just Ravenswood D. It looked like a rotten tooth in a jawbone of boarded-up storefronts. The man who answered the door didn't give his name, just a nod, a grunt, and a key on a frayed blue string. His eyes were the color of ditch water, and he smelled like mothballs and damp wool. He led me up 3 flights of stairs that groaned like dying animals underfoot. Every landing had a mirror, not small ones, floor to ceiling, tarnished silver frames, positioned directly opposite the stairwell doors. As we passed each one, I caught glimpses of myself, pale, hollow-eyed, hair pulled back in a fraying ponytail, but also something else, a flicker in the glass, a shadow that didn't match my movement. I told myself it was the flickering bulb overhead, the building's age, my own exhaustion. He stopped at room 314. Last room on the hall, utilities included, no pets, no visitors after 9, pay every Monday. He didn't look at me when he spoke. His gaze kept sliding toward the mirror at the end of the hall. And don't cover the mirror. What? The mirror, he said, finally meeting my eyes. His pupils were too wide, swallowing the pale irises. Facing the door. Don't cover it. Don't turn it. Don't touch it. Just leave it be. He pressed the key into my palm. His skin was cold. You'll pay tonight. Cash. The room was smaller than a prison cell. A narrow bed with a stained mattress, a sink with rust bleeding from its taps, a single window crusted with grime overlooking a dead-end alley choked with trash, and directly opposite the door, dominating the far wall, a mirror. Not just any mirror. An antique thing, easily 6 feet tall, its silvered glass warped with age, the ornate frame blackened with tarnish. It reflected the room perfectly, but the light in the glass felt wrong. Colder. Deeper. I dropped my duffel on the bed. The silence pressed in, thick and heavy. Outside, the city sounds were muffled, distant. Inside, the only noise was the slow drip, drip, drip of the leaky faucet and the low hum of the old building settling. I unpacked my few things, a change of clothes, Mom's chipped teacup, the only thing I'd kept from the house, a photo of us at the county fair when I was 10. I placed the photo on the nightstand, facing away from the mirror. Something about that glass made me not want my mother's face reflected in it. That first night, I lay awake. The mirror glowed faintly in the dark, catching the sickly yellow light of the street lamp outside. I kept my back to it, pulling the thin blanket over my head like a child, but sleep wouldn't come. The dripping faucet, the groan of pipes, the sound of footsteps in the hall, slow, deliberate, stopping outside my door. I held my breath. The footsteps didn't move on, they just waited. Then a soft scratch at the keyhole, like fingernails. I squeezed my eyes shut. It's just rats. Old buildings have rats. But rats don't breathe. I heard it then, a wet, ragged inhalation right outside the door. Close enough to touch. I didn't move, didn't breathe. After what felt like hours, the footsteps faded down the hall. Morning light did little to ease the dread. I found the landlord in the basement, tinkering with a fuse box that sparked ominously. "You hear anything last night?" I asked, my voice tight. He didn't look up. "This building breathes. It remembers." "Remembers what?" He finally turned, wiping grease on his overalls. His eyes flicked past me toward the stairs, toward the mirrors. "People. It remembers the people who stayed, the ones who never left." He handed me a rusted bucket. "Fix the leak in your sink, or don't. Either way, pay tonight." I spent the day trying to ignore the mirror. I scrubbed the sink, patched the worst of the leaks with plumber's tape I found in a drawer, and walked to a corner store for instant noodles and a cheap burner phone. No signal inside the hotel, none at all. The store clerk, an old man with milky eyes, barely glanced at me when he rang up my items. "New at the Grand, eh?" he muttered. Yeah, just for a while. He snorted. A while's all it takes. That place don't like strangers, especially not when the mirrors are hungry. I froze. What mirrors? He just shook his head, sliding my change across the counter. Don't look too long, he whispered. Don't blink. Back in room 314, I avoided the mirror's gaze. I ate my noodles at the tiny table back turned, but I could feel it, that cold spot in the air behind me, the sense of being watched. When I finally dared to glance at it, my reflection stared back, tired, wary. But behind me, in the glass, the room looked different. The bed was made with crisp white linens. The walls were freshly painted, and in the corner, where my duffel bag sat, stood a woman in a 1940s floral dress, her back to me, humming softly as she brushed long, dark hair. I spun around. The room was empty, just dust motes dancing in the weak sunlight. My heart hammered against my ribs. Stress, grief, sleep deprivation. I recited the words like a prayer. That night, the scratching returned, louder, insistent, not at the keyhole this time, at the mirror itself. Scritch, scritch, scritch. I lay rigid in bed, eyes squeezed shut, blanket pulled over my head. The scratching stopped. Then came the tapping, light, rhythmic on the glass, like a fingernail. Tap, 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 tap. I couldn't stand it. I threw off the blanket. The mirror was fogged, not with steam, with breath. Someone, or something, had been standing close to the glass, breathing on it. In the center of the fogged patch, words were forming, written by an invisible finger. Let me out. I lunged out of bed, grabbing the only weapon I had, Mom's heavy cast-iron teacup. Who's there? My voice cracked. The fog vanished instantly, as if wiped clean. My reflection stared back, wide-eyed, wild-haired, but as I watched, it didn't move when I did. It stayed perfectly, still. Then, slowly, it smiled. A smile I didn't make. A smile too wide, too sharp. I threw the teacup. It shattered against the mirror with a sound like a gunshot. Glass shards flew everywhere, but the mirror didn't break. Not really. The cracks spiderwebbed across its surface, but through them I saw not the wall behind it, but another room. Darker, colder, the same layout as mine, but draped in mildewed velvet curtains. And standing in the center, facing the broken glass, was the woman from the 1940s dress. Her face was pale, her eyes black voids. She raised a hand, palm flat against the glass. On her wrist, a thin scar pulsed red. I backed away, tripping over the bed frame. The cracks sealed themselves before my eyes, the glass smoothing out, the shards of teacup vanishing as if they'd never existed. Only the mug remained, whole and unbroken, sitting neatly on the nightstand. My reflection stared back, breathing hard, tears streaming down my face. But in the glass, my reflection wasn't crying. It was still smiling. I didn't sleep. At dawn, I packed my duffel. Screw the $75. Screw the landlord. I'd sleep in my car, anything but this. I flung open the door and froze. The hallway mirror, the one at the very end, was gone. In its place was a dark archway, not a door. An archway cut directly into the wall, leading into impenetrable blackness. From the darkness came the smell of damp earth and old roses, and the sound of humming, the same tune I'd heard in the mirror the day before. I slammed my room door shut, locking it with trembling hands. Leaning against it, I slid to the floor. That's when I saw the note slipped under the door. No envelope, just a piece of yellowed hotel stationery, the ink faded, but legible. They watch through the glass. They wait in the between. Covering the mirror traps them with you. Breaking it lets them out. The only way to leave is to let them in. Don't trust your reflection. It's not yours anymore. Eleanor. Eleanor. The name from Camp Everstill. How is this connected? My head spun. I remembered the journal entry about the hollow ground beneath the cabin. The Grandview Hotel's ledger filled with forgotten names. Were they all part of the same hunger? The same ancient ravenous stillness that clung to abandoned places? That afternoon, I found Eleanor's room. Room 217. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, it was untouched. Dust lay thick on the dresser, the bed, the nightstand. But the mirror was covered, not with cloth, with dozens of layers of peeling wallpaper nailed haphazardly over the glass. Scratches covered the wood beneath, deep, frantic gouges, as if someone had clawed at it for hours. On the bed lay a single object, a small, tarnished hand mirror. Its glass was cracked down the middle. I picked it up. My reflection stared back, but the crack split my face in two. One side was me. The other side was the woman in the floral dress. She mouthed two words. Help us. I dropped the mirror. It shattered. The pieces didn't scatter. They melted into the floorboards like mercury, leaving dark stains that smelled of roses. The landlord found me sitting in the hallway outside room 217, a-shaking. He didn't ask what I'd seen. He just sighed, a sound like dry leaves crumbling. Eleanor tried to fight them, he said, his voice flat. Tried to seal them in, but the mirrors, they're not windows, they're doors. And doors can be opened from either side. He crouched beside me, his breath sour. You think you're the first to run. They always run, until they realize the only way out is through. Through what? Through the reflection. He tapped his chest. They take what you carry, the pain, the grief, the things that make you heavy. They feed on it, and when you're empty, you stay. Like Eleanor, like all the others. He stood up, brushing dust from his knees. Pay your rent tonight, or don't. It doesn't matter. The mirrors choose who stays. Night fell like a shroud. I barricaded the door with a flimsy dresser. Useless. I knew it was useless. The mirror glowed in the dark, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. I sat on the bed, Mom's photo clutched in my hand, staring at my own terrified face in the glass. And then, slowly, my reflection changed. It wasn't me anymore. It was Mom, younger, happy, the way I remembered her before the sickness. She smiled, holding out her hand toward the glass. Come home, she mouthed. It doesn't hurt here. Tears blurred my vision. I wanted it so badly, to not feel this raw, hollow ache, to not wake up every morning to the silence of an empty house. I stood up, drawn to the mirror like a moth to flame. My hand rose, my fingers touched the cold glass. It felt warm where my reflection's hand met mine. Almost there, Mom's reflection whispered. The glass rippled like water. My fingers sank in, up to the wrist. The warmth spread up my arm, soothing, numbing. The grief, the loneliness, the crushing weight of being alone in the world, it all began to melt away. Peace, such sweet, silent peace. Then I saw it. Behind Mom's reflection, in the warped glass, the woman in the floral dress stood waiting. Her black eyes held no peace, only hunger, and behind her, dozens of others, men, women, children, all pale, all smiling with too many teeth, all reaching toward the glass. They weren't offering peace. They were offering oblivion, erasure. They wanted my pain, yes, but they wanted me more. My memories, my face, my name. I yanked my hand back. The glass snapped shut with a sound like a bone breaking. My reflection snapped back to my own terrified face, but on my wrist, where the glass had touched my skin, a thin red line appeared, like a scar, like Eleanor's. The mirror fogged again. New words formed. You can't run from what you carry. I grabbed Mom's photo, shoved it in my pocket, and kicked aside the dresser. I flew down the stairs, taking them two at a time, not caring about the groans, not caring about the mirrors lining the landings. In each one, I saw flashes, not of myself, but of the others. The woman in the floral dress running down the stairs ahead of me, a child with hollow eyes staring from a second-floor mirror, a man in a bellhop uniform, the same one from the grand view, watching from the lobby mirror, polishing a key. I burst through the front doors into the cold night air. I didn't stop running until I reached my car 3 blocks away. I fumbled with the keys, engine roaring to life. As I peeled away from the curb, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The Ravenswood Grand stood dark against the starless sky, but every single window on the 3rd floor glowed with a soft, silver light, and in the center window of room 314, pressed against the glass, was my own face, watching me leave, smiling. I drove for hours through state lines until the gas gauge blinked empty. I found a cheap roadside motel, new, fluorescent lit, blessedly mirror-free, and collapsed on the scratchy bed. I slept for 12 hours straight, woke to sunlight, to birdsong, to the smell of coffee from the diner next door. I was safe. I was free. I bought a bus ticket out of town that afternoon, one way, no destination, just away. The bus station was crowded, smelly, real. I bought a greasy burger and a soda, savoring the mundane chaos. As I waited for my bus, I wandered to the restrooms. Inside the women's room, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and directly opposite the door, mounted on the chipped tile wall, a mirror. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. Don't look. Don't blink. I backed slowly toward the exit, eyes fixed on the door handle. But as I turned, my gaze flickered to the glass. My reflection stared back, but it wasn't alone. Behind me, in the mirror's reflection of the restroom, stood the woman in the floral dress. Her hand rested on my reflection's shoulder. Her black eyes met mine in the glass, and she smiled. On her wrist, the scar pulsed red, matching mine. I ran out of the restroom, past the confused ticket agent, out into the parking lot. My bus was boarding. I sprinted toward it, fumbling for my ticket. As I climbed the steps, I turned for one last look at the station. Every window in the building reflected the afternoon sun. But in the restroom window, the glass was dark, and pressed against it, watching me board the bus, was not one face, dozens, pale faces, hungry faces, Mom's face among them, all smiling, all waiting. The bus doors hissed shut, the engine rumbled to life. As we pulled away, I kept my eyes forward, fixed on the road ahead. But in the small, convex mirror above the driver's seat, I saw them, not in the station anymore, in the reflection of the bus windows, sitting in the empty seats behind me, the woman in the floral dress, the hollow-eyed child, the bellhop, and in the very back seat, barely visible, Mom. She raised a hand, waved. I closed my eyes, pressed my forehead against the cool glass of the bus window, tried to breathe, tried to be still. But the reflection in the window wasn't my own. It was the lobby of the Ravenswood Grand, the mirrors lining the hallways, the archway of darkness where the end mirror had been, and standing in the center of it all, facing me, was my own face, calm, empty, at peace, holding out a hand. You can't run from what you carry. The bus rolled on. The highway stretched ahead, endless and gray. I didn't open my eyes again. I didn't need to. I could feel them behind me, in the seats, in the glass, in the quiet spaces between heartbeats, waiting for me to look, waiting for me to remember, waiting for me to finally let go. Some doors don't lead out. They lead deeper in. And with that, this story comes to an end. Let's move on to the next one. The Locked Tunnel. My friends wanted to open. It started with a map. Not a digital one, not a tourist brochure, a real folded brittle thing, stained with coffee rings and the faint grease of old fingers, pulled from the back of a mildewed photo album in my grandmother's attic after she passed. Blackwater Hollow, Township Survey, 1911. Most of it was useless, parcel lines for farms long swallowed by forest, names of men buried 60 years, until the lower right corner. There, tucked between the faded inks marking Devil's Creek and Old Mill Road, was a thin, dashed line. It snaked from the edge of the map, vanished beneath the printed border, then reappeared 2 inches later, terminating in a small, perfect circle labeled in meticulous, spidery script, ventilation shaft, access tunnel, sealed, 1923. Below that, in newer ink, shaky and desperate, don't open it. H. Henry, my great-uncle, the one who vanished in 47, the one they found 3 days later, 10 miles from anywhere, babbling about the singing in the walls. Before he stopped speaking entirely, he died 2 weeks after that, eyes wide open, fixed on the ceiling, a single dried tear track cutting through the grime on his cheek. My friends, Lena, Ben, and Priya, thought it was a dare, a mystery, a score. Priya, with her archaeology degree and restless hands, traced the dashed line with a fingertip. It's a maintenance tunnel for the old aqueduct, probably just collapsed or full of bats. Ben, ever the pragmatist, squinted. Sealed in 1923? What did they seal it from? Lena, quiet, intuitive Lena, just touched the initials. Tch, and shivered. It feels heavy. We went anyway. Blackwater Hollow wasn't a town. It was a scar, a depression in the land where the forest grew thicker, darker, the pines leaning inward like conspirators. The air was cooler there, damper, smelling of wet stone and decaying leaves, even in high summer. No birds sang, no insects buzzed, just the low, constant sigh of wind through the canyon, a sound like distant breathing. The map led us off the overgrown logging road, down a steep, root-choked ravine, slick with moss. Devil's Creek wasn't a creek anymore, just a cracked bed of black shale, littered with smooth, water-worn stones the color of dried blood. We crossed it, boots slipping on the shale, the silence pressing in. Then we saw it, the ventilation shaft, not a hole, a monument. A cylinder of poured concrete, 10 feet in diameter, rising 15 feet from the creek bed like a broken tooth. Its surface was pitted, stained with rust-colored mineral deposits, wrapped in thick iron bands bolted deep into the stone. At its base, set into the concrete like a grim mouth, was a door, not wood, not steel. Iron. 3 inches thick, riveted shut, blackened with age and something else. Soot, maybe, but too uniform, too deliberate. And across its center, bolted, through the iron itself, was a lock, not a padlock, a hasp. Forged iron, shaped like interlocking hands, fingers clasped in a grip so tight the knuckles were rendered in painful detail. The keyhole wasn't a hole. It was an eye, a smooth, polished circle of obsidian set deep in the center of the clasped hands. "No keyhole," Ben muttered, running a hand over the cold iron. "Just an eye." Priya knelt, flashlight beam trembling slightly. "Look!" She pointed to the base of the shaft. Scratched into the concrete, almost erased by time and weather, were words, not carved, gouged, as if by frantic fingernails. "It knows when you look." Lena backed away, her face pale. "We should go, now." But Priya was already pulling tools from her pack. Crowbar, hammer, cold chisel. "It's just a seal, probably just collapsed earth. We'll take a peek. 5 minutes. Then we leave." Ben, ever loyal, ever curious, nodded. 5 minutes. I stood frozen, staring at the obsidian eye. It wasn't reflecting the weak sunlight filtering through the pines. It was reflecting me, but not as I was. Taller, thinner, eyes wide, black, unblinking, smiling. The iron didn't yield. The crowbar bent, the chisel snapped. The hammer blows rang out, sharp and final, in the suffocating silence, each clang, seeming to hang in the air long after the sound should have faded, vibrating in my teeth, in my bones. Clang, clang, clang. On the 7th blow, the obsidian eye cracked, not shattered, a single hairline fracture radiating from the center like a spider's leg, and from within the shaft, a sound, not a groan of shifting earth, a sigh, long, wet, deeply, profoundly relieved. The air changed. The damp coolness vanished, replaced by a wave of dry, stale heat, the smell of ancient dust, ozone, and beneath it, the faint, sweet rot stench of something long entombed and not quite dead. The fracture in the obsidian? I pulsed. A faint, greenish light bled through. Thump! A vibration, not from the ground, from the door, like a heart waking up. Thump! Thump! Priya dropped the hammer. What the hell was that? Ben's face was ashen. "We need to go." Lena was already scrambling back up the ravine, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. Priya hesitated, eyes locked on the pulsing light. It's just geothermal, or gas, methane buildup, pressure release." The iron hands moved, not much, a fraction of an inch, the clasped fingers unclasped, just enough. A gap opened, darkness within, and a whisper, not one voice, hundreds, layered, overlapping, exhausted, eager. "Open, please, open." Priya reached out. "Don't!" Lena screamed from the ridge, but Priya's fingers touched the obsidian eye. The fracture spread. Crack. The light flared, bright, sickly green. The iron hands fell away. The door didn't swing open. It unfolded, like a flower blooming in reverse. Iron petals peeled back, silent, smooth, revealing not a tunnel mouth, a throat, dark, glistening, lined with ridges of something that looked like stone, but moved, pulsing, contracting, and from within, the heat intensified, the whispering rose to a chorus. "Thank you." Priya didn't scream. She stepped forward, into the throat. Ben lunged, grabbing her arm. She turned. Her eyes weren't hers. They were black, solid, reflecting the green light. Her smile was too wide. "It's not dark in there," she said, her voice layered, a child's, a man's, a woman's, all speaking at once. "It's home." She pulled free, vanished into the darkness. The throat closed behind her, silently, leaving only the green light pulsing in the obsidian eye, now whole again. Ben stared at his empty hand. "Priya?" Silence. Then, a new sound from deep within the shaft. A rhythm. Thump! 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 Not one heart, many, synchronized. Thump! 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 Ben picked up the hammer. "Priya!" he yelled, his voice raw. He slammed the hammer against the iron door. Clang! The green light flared. The obsidian eye blinked. The door unfolded again, wider this time. The throat glistened. The whispering was clearer now. "Benjamin, we remember your laugh, the day you fixed the swing, the blue kite. Come see." Ben froze. His name, his story, things only Priya knew. He looked at me, eyes wide with terror and a terrible dawning hope. Maybe she's okay. Maybe it's not. He took a step. "Ben, no." I grabbed his arm. He looked at me, really looked. "Jamie, what if it's not bad? What if it's just lost? What if it needs us?" He pulled free, walked to the throat, didn't hesitate, stepped in. The door closed. The green light pulsed. Thump, thump, thump. Louder, faster. Lena was sobbing now, curled on the ridge above. "Make it stop, Jamie, please. Make it stop." I stood alone before the shaft. The obsidian eye watched me. The whispering shifted, softer, sadder. "James, Ellie misses you. She's waiting, just like before." Ellie, my sister, gone 32 years. My breath caught. The fracture reappeared in the obsidian. The door unfolded. Just a crack. Green light spilled out, pooling on the black shale, and in the light, a shape, small, a hand, pale, child-sized, reaching out, fingers curled. "Come." I knew it was a trap. I knew it was madness, but the hollow place inside me, the one Ellie left, ached with a sudden, unbearable fullness. The promise of her, of answers, of her. I took a step, then another. The green light washed over me, warm, inviting. The whispering became a single voice. Ellie's. "Don't be scared, Jamie." I reached the threshold, looked into the throat. Not darkness, light, soft, golden, and within it, a park. Silver pines, the sky spiral turning, the carousel spinning, children laughing. Ellie stood at the base of the Ferris wheel, wearing her yellow sundress, whole, unharmed, smiling. She held out her hand. "Just one more ride." The scent of cotton candy and diesel filled my nostrils. The sound of the calliope, bright, cheerful, wound through the green light. It wasn't the tunnel, it was home. The place I'd been running from and toward my whole life. I stepped in. The door closed behind me. Silence. Then the thumping stopped, replaced by a new sound, a single, clear note, like a music box, winding up. The inside wasn't a tunnel. It was a vein. Smooth, warm walls, pulsing gently, lined with a network of faintly glowing filaments, green, gold, amber, like capillaries carrying light instead of blood. The air hummed, a low, resonant frequency that vibrated in my chest, in my teeth, in the hollows behind my eyes. It wasn't oppressive. It was nourishing, like sinking into warm water after a lifetime of cold. The path sloped downward, gentle, winding, no branches, just the one way, forward. The golden light ahead grew brighter, closer. I heard laughter, real laughter, children's laughter, Ellie's laugh. I broke into a run. The path opened, a cavern, not a cave, a chamber, vast, cathedral-like. The walls weren't rock. They were glass. Thousands of panes fused together, forming a seamless, curved surface that stretched into darkness above. And behind the glass came movement. Figures, hundreds of them, walking, sitting, talking, playing, all in period dress, 1920s suits, 1940s dresses, 1970s bell-bottoms, all smiling, all whole, all alive. Priya stood near the center, her back to me, talking animatedly to a woman in a floral apron. She turned. Her eyes were still black, but her smile was real, peaceful. "Jamie," she called, her voice clear, unlayered. "You made it!" Ben was nearby, on his knees in the soft, moss-like ground, helping a young boy fly a blue kite. He looked up, grinned. "Told you it wasn't bad." Lena stood apart, arms wrapped around herself, tears streaming down her face. But she wasn't crying in fear. She was crying in relief. She saw me and ran, throwing her arms around me. "It's real," she sobbed. "It's all real. They're here." "Who?" I whispered. "The lost ones," she said, pulling back, her eyes shining. "The forgotten, the ones the world let go. The tunnel. It doesn't take. It holds." She pointed to the glass wall. I looked closer. The figures weren't just walking. They were remembered. A man in a soldier's uniform polishing his boots, humming a tune only he could hear. A little girl braiding dandelions into a crown, her mother watching with a soft smile. An old man reading a newspaper dated October 3rd, 1955 hours, the ink still fresh. And there, near the front, Ellie. She saw me, dropped the dandelion crown, ran. She crashed into me, small arms wrapping tight around my waist, burying her face in my shirt. I held her, trembling. She was warm, solid, real. "Jamie," she whispered, muffled, "I waited so long." "I'm sorry," I choked out. "I'm so sorry I left." "You didn't leave," she said, pulling back, wiping her eyes. Her face was clean, her yellow dress bright, her eyes brown, clear, hers held mine. "You got scared. The door closed. I couldn't open it from this side, but I knew you'd come back. I knew." She took my hand. "Come on, there's someone you need to see." She led me deeper into the chamber. The air grew warmer, the humming deeper, the light brighter. At the very center of the cavern stood a structure. Not a building, a tree, but not of wood, of light. A massive, pulsing column of pure golden radiance branching out into fractal patterns that mirrored the filaments in the tunnel walls. Its leaves were shimmering orbs of light, thousands of them, drifting slowly around the trunk like fireflies. Beneath it, on a simple stone bench, sat a woman, dark hair streaked with silver, tired eyes, a familiar smile. My mother, gone since '98, presumed dead. She looked up. Her smile widened. "Hello, Jamie," she said, her voice the sound of home. "Took you long enough." I fell to my knees. She held out her arms. I went into them. The scent of her, lavender and vanilla, flooded my senses. The hollow place inside me didn't just fill, it healed. She stroked my hair. "It's okay, sweetheart. You're safe now. We all are." She nodded toward the light tree. "The heart," she said softly. "It remembers everything, every laugh, every tear, every lost moment. It holds us, keeps us whole. When the world forgets, the heart remembers." Ellie squeezed my hand. "It's not a prison, Jamie. It's a sanctuary, a place where no one is ever truly gone." Lena joined us, sitting on a bench beside my mother, resting her head on her shoulder like a daughter. "It showed me my grandmother," she whispered, "the one who died when I was born. She sang me the lullaby my mom forgot." Ben and Priya approached, the boy with the blue kite hovering near Ben's leg. "We asked it to show us," Priya said, her black eyes gentle. not to take, to remember. It listens. It's not evil, Ben added, his voice thick with emotion. It's lonely. It needs witnesses. To prove the memories are real. My mother looked at me. The tunnel isn't a door out, Jamie. It's a door in to what matters. She stood, took my hand. Ellie took the other. They led me to the base of the heart. The golden light was warm on my skin. The humming vibrated in my bones. My mother placed my palm flat against the trunk. The light flared. Images flooded my mind. Not memories. Truths. Ellie, not lost, but called, drawn by the heart's resonance, a child sensitive to its song. Me, fleeing in blind panic, the tunnel ceiling behind me, not to trap her, but to protect the sanctuary from the outside world's forgetting. Henry, my great-uncle, not driven mad, but overwhelmed by the sheer weight of love, the depth of memory, the sheer presence of the heart. He hadn't screamed about terror. He'd wept at the beauty of it. The ceiling in 1923, not to contain a horror, but to preserve a miracle. The town fathers, witnesses to the first emergence after the mine collapse, had understood. They'd built the shaft. They'd forged the door. They'd written the warning, don't open it. Not because it was dangerous, because it was precious, because the world wasn't ready, because the heart needed silence, stillness to hold its breath. Until now, until us. The light softened. My mother smiled. It's time, she said. Time for what? To choose. She gestured around the chamber. To stay, to be remembered, to be whole, or to go back, to carry the memory, to be the witness. Ellie looked up at me, her eyes wide, trusting. You don't have to stay, Jamie, but I hope you do. The heart pulsed. The light shifted. The chamber walls, the glass became transparent, not showing the figures, showing outside. The ravine, the black shale, the iron shaft, and standing before it, 3 figures, me, Lena, Ben, all staring at the sealed door, faces pale with terror. Me, the me who hadn't stepped through, the me still on the outside. The choice wasn't about staying or leaving. It was about which me would walk back out, the hollow one or the whole one. My mother kissed my forehead. No wrong choice, sweetheart. Only truth. She stepped back. Ellie held my hand tighter. The heart hummed. The light waited. I looked at the outside me, terrified, alone, carrying 32 years of grief like a stone in his chest. I looked at Ellie, alive, real, here. I looked at my mother, smiling, whole. I looked at Lena and Ben, peaceful, found. The hollow place was gone, replaced by a warmth so profound it felt like the first true breath I'd taken since I was 8 years old. I squeezed Ellie's hand, turned to my mother, and nodded. She smiled. The heart pulsed once, bright, golden, complete. The glass walls faded, the chamber filled with light, not blinding, welcoming. The last thing I saw, the last thing I was the outside me. He turned away from the shaft, walked back up the ravine, didn't look back. His shoulders were straighter, his step lighter. He carried no stone. He carried a secret, a promise, a memory. He reached the top. Lena and Ben, the outside ones, were waiting. They looked at him. He looked at them. And for the first time in 32 years, he smiled, a real smile, not whole, but healing. He took their hands. They walked away from Blackwater Hollow, back toward the world. The iron shaft stood silent. The obsidian eye watched them go. Then, slowly, the green light within it faded, the fracture sealed. The iron hands clasped tight once more. The tunnel slept, holding its breath, holding its heart, holding its family, waiting for the next lost soul to find a map, to hear the whisper, to choose. The locked tunnel wasn't a warning. It was an invitation. And the most terrifying, beautiful thing about it, it only opens for those who are truly ready to come home.